Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in part 17 of What If the Transformers crash landed in Code Geass. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Setting the stage. A trio of Decepticons causally walked through the ruined street around the area of the stadium where the massacre of the Special Administrative Zone had taken place. The three Decepticons didn't do much save for occasionally blowing away any pieces of ruble for the same of amusement. Man, looks like all the humans cleared out. Kinda sucks. One Decepticon commented. And we were having so much fun too. The second Decepticon said, till those Black Knight guys come in and ruin it. Hey, shouldn't we have gone back to the Nemesis? The third Decepticon asked. Lord Megatron did order us. We got time. The first Decepticon shrugged. Let's just make sure there aren't humans left. I really wanna. Suddenly, all three of them were pelted with a hailstorm of bullets. Though the bullets did only minor damage to their outer shells, it was enough to catch them off guard as a certain Gloucester shot forward at the group, jamming its lance into the chest of the Decepticon in the middle and driving him into a building before the Gloucester pulled back and fired its slash Harkins at the sides of the building, causing it to collapse onto the Decepticon, killing it. What the scrap? The second Decepticon exclaimed as he and his partner pointed their energon blasters at the nightmare. That's Cornelia. The third Decepticon shouted as they opened fire onto the charging nightmare. Inside the Gloucester, Cornelia's expression could only be described as something like that of a cornered animal mixed with unbridled rage, with only a single thought on her mind that surged through her being like a raging fire. Bring me Megatron, Cornelia screamed as she engaged the two Decepticons. The Nemesis, the bridge. Soundwave had displayed all the civil unrest that was forming all over the nation as a result of the massacre they had just orchestrated. Needless to say, many of the Decepticons present were quite pleased. Well, that was certainly a show. Starscream snickered. Who would have thought Euphemia could actually be useful to us? Let us hope Arachnid can express our sheer gratitude for her support to the Decepticon cause. Skywarp laughed. Oh, what I wouldn't give to see the look on her face right now. Not every day your life's is utterly ruined. Knockout didn't appear to share his comrades' jubilation. It was a bit more excessive than I would have liked. What? You're actually feeling sorry for all those meat bags, Knockout? Breakdown questioned. Well, not really, Knockout replied, but I would have preferred a more subtle way. I would have preferred that, too. Thundercracker confessed. But, at the same time, this will definitely cause a huge uproar, which only serves to benefit us. By the way, how are Kururugi and Dreadwing gonna take this? Where are they anyway? Skywarp asked. Soundwave has been unable to trace their signals. Megatron spoke as he walked to address his soldiers. Meaning they are likely within the confines of the shielded Autobot base, probably having defected. Well, it was to be expected. Starscream didn't seem the least bit upset. If anything, he actually looked thrilled. Actually, this is great. It means we can finally get rid of those annoyances, especially Kururugi. That boy really grated on my nerves. So, does that mean we won't be able to work with the Lancelot anymore? Knockout asked. Probably not, Thundercracker assumed. Oh, that's too bad. I really liked that thing. Knockout replied. Acceptable losses. Megatron dismissed. But now. Lord Megatron. He looked in minor surprise, as did the other Decepticons present, as he was contacted on an emergency line. Cornelia's on a rampage. She's attacking. Ah. His scream was cut off before it went to static. Did he just say Cornelia? Skywarp asked. You don't think she figured us out, do you? Knockout also asked. Starscream growled. If that wretch discovered our plot, she could tell the rest of Britannia, and possibly thwart our plan. Breakdown already readied his hammer. I could go down there and make sure she doesn't tell anyone, ever. That won't be necessary, Breakdown. Megatron told him as he looked rather amused. I will deal with Cornelia myself. Lloyd. Cecile ran toward her boss with a phone in her hand, the man in the hangar of the Avalon where the Lancelot would normally be stored, but it was clearly missing, as was its pilot. I just got a message from Suzaku. Oh, and just where is our boy? Lloyd asked casually as Cecile played the message on her phone. Lloyd, Ms. Cecile, it's Suzaku. I trust you saw what happened at the special zone. That thing you saw, that thing that looked like Princess Euphemia, it was not Euphy. Cecile and even Lloyd looked in surprise with that revelation, as well as they could clearly hear anger in Suzaku's voice. It was fake. Some sort of robot that the Decepticons used to start a massacre. What? Cecile exclaimed in clear shock. An android. Who would have thought the cons would have that up their sleeves? Lloyd thought as they continued to listen. Listen carefully, I'm not coming back to Britannia. Dreadwing and I are going to work with the Autobots and the Black Knights, and I'm taking the Lancelot with me. Now it was Lloyd's turn to react. What? My precious Lancelot. I know that this might end up making me a traitor, so I might never see you two again. The message continued to play as it sounded like Suzaku was starting to sound sincere. So, let me just say, thank you. I'm an 11, and you two have always treated me with respect, giving me chances and opportunities to try and help me with my goal. Thank you both for everything, and please be careful, the Decepticons are planning something. And I hope you two don't get caught in the middle. Thank you, and goodbye. This is Major Kururugi, officially resigning from the Britannian military. The message came to an end as Lloyd and Cecile looked toward each other, almost like their minds were just trying to process what had just happened. Well, I definitely didn't see that coming. Lloyd voiced aloud. However, Cecile's expression turned from shock into determination. She then proceeded to walk out of the hangar. And just where are you going? Lloyd asked her. I'm going to help Suzaku. Suzaku and Dreadwing stood on the bridge of the Ark, the base for the Autobots and the Black Knights, and they weren't the only ones. As Suzaku stood in the living quarters of the bridge, Louch, still clad in his Zero outfit, along with Colin, Nunnally, Sayoko, Cece, Rai, Toto, Shirley, Kagaya, Ogi, and Fixit all stood around him. Around Dreadwing stood the full roster of Autobots consisting of Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, RC, Ratchet, Ironhide, Bulkhead, Cliffjumper, and Wheeljack. Though Lelouch and Optimus had sanctioned the presence of Suzaku and Dreadwing, there were those among them that did not approve. Optimus, Lelouch, look, I'm sorry, but I don't know what to think about all this. Ogi confessed. I know you've talked about bringing Suzaku here, but a Decepticon too? He questioned, referring to Dreadwing. That's right, Colin exclaimed, especially after what they just pulled. I had absolutely nothing to do with that. Dreadwing stated. I would never have condoned a massacre. I believe him. Ironhide said in a more reluctant tone, much to most of the group's shock. He may be a con, but Dreadwing ain't a monster. I've seen him enough on Cybertron to know that much. How do we know they can't track us? RC questioned. How do we know Megatron didn't put some kind of tracer into the Lancelot and we just showed him where our base is? She's kinda got a point. Cliffjumper seemed to agree. Even if these two are honest about working with us, Buckethead could have planted something behind their backs. That is why we left the Lancelot to Rakshata to look over. Lelouch said calmly. Just to make sure Megatron didn't leave any surprises for us. I understand why you all feel skeptical, especially with Suzaku, given each of their past actions. Optimus began. That's an understatement, Bulkhead stated. But the fact that they have chosen here to come willingly, despite their refusals in the past, that alone speaks volumes. Optimus continued. No offense, boss man, but I think I speak for pretty much every bot or BK in this ship, that we need a bit more than sentiment. Wheeljack put in. Guys, wait. Shirley tried to step up. I know they've done bad things, but maybe if we give them a chance. A chance to stab us in the back. Ratchet interrupted. I know Dreadwing wouldn't, but Suzaku, who was willing to kill his own father, that is another story. Suzaku winced at that particular comment, though he knew he couldn't blame them for that, as he still hasn't fully accepted it yet. Dreadwing had similar feelings and wanted to express his own words in Suzaku's defense. Even Nunnally wanted to speak up as well, but Rai already did. I gotta go with them on this, too. Rai spoke up. Lelouch, Optimus, I'm sorry. I want to trust them, but how do we know Suzaku won't stab us in the back at the first chance he gets? Same with Dreadwing. I know you guys said it's not in his character or whatever, but we need proof. I need proof that they can be trusted. Lelouch shared a glance with Bumblebee and Optimus, hoping they would have something to say. Though all three understood why their friends and comrades were skeptical, Lelouch especially wanted them to trust Suzaku as he could tell that he wanted to change, but he knew they were right, they needed more than words. Likewise, Nunnally, Shirley, and even Kagaya wanted to believe it as well, but for everyone else, they needed hardcore evidence that they could trust. Todo walked forward as he faced his former student, who had trouble looking him in the eye. The truth, Suzaku. You were asked before to join us, but you've turned us down. Why is this different? Why choose to join us now? Suzaku clenched his fists as he spoke honestly. I won't take part in the massacres of innocent people. That's not why I became a soldier. Then why did you become a soldier? Colin questioned skeptically. I honestly don't know anymore. Suzaku replied. But whatever it was, I know it's not what the Decepticons or Britannia want. Euphemia wanted to help all of you. She was sincere and serious in her intent to end the fighting, to try and forge peace. And how was she repaid? She was replaced with an imposter in her likeness that shot and killed so many people. And the Decepticons, and Britannian soldiers, just went along with it. Like it was what they wanted all along. But that's not me. That's not what I want. Suzaku shouted as everyone, Autobot and human, even CC and Dreadwing, all paid attention to what Suzaku had to say next. Look, you don't have to like me, to like us, he referred to Dreadwing and himself. But you have to believe me. I might have killed before, but I will not kill innocent people and I will not be part of any cause that allows that. Nor will I. Dreadwing spoke up. A shadow of disgrace has been cast upon the Decepticons, or perhaps it was always there and I had just remained blind to it. But no longer, Suzaku and I understand why you do not trust us, but we can and will help. However, if you cannot take our word alone, he then spoke to the Autobot leader. Optimus, have any of your soldiers served in Praxis law enforcement? Optimus was somewhat perplexed by that question, as were many other Autobots. What's Praxis? Nunnally asked as most of the humans seemed rather lost, including Lelouch. Not what, where, Cliffjumper answered. It was a city on Cybertron. Used to be a nice place, till before the war when it became a wretched hive of scum and villainy. I served in Praxis law enforcement. Fix-It rolled up. I helped to manage a prison block. Dreadwing then directed his attention to the mini-con. Then I trust you're familiar with the core override protocol. Optimus, Ironhide, and Ratchet looked especially shocked at that, while the other Autobots and Black Knights were even more confused, though none were more surprised than Fix-It. Yes, why? I will submit to one. Dreadwing said, causing Fix-It to gasp audibly. Wanna fill the rest of us in? Bulkhead asked. What the scrap is a core override? It was a dark chapter in Praxis history. Ironhide explained. A little bit before the war started, gangs and crime syndicates practically ran the city, and there weren't enough cops to keep it under control. As a deterrent, the city council authorized the use of core override implants to try and restore order. Ratchet also explained. It was one of many things that myself, Optimus, Ironhide, and others tried to stop. So, what did these implant things do? Colin asked. They allow us to remotely trigger brain detonation. Fix-It stuttered, much to the clear shock or even horror of most of the people and bots present. Even CC and Toto were somewhat caught off guard. Blow up his brain module. RC exclaimed. You wanna put a bomb in his brain? Shirley practically screamed. Yes. Dreadwing said firmly. You can exterminate me at the first sign of deception. This way you don't have to trust me, you can just kill me. And I thought Bulkhead's brain being erased with that data cylinder was crazy. Rai thought, still not over his shock. That's a bit on the extreme side, don't you think? Ogie did not feel comfortable at all with it. How come we've never heard of it before? Wheeljack questioned. When the war began, Praxis City Council tried to erase all the data regarding the core override, for fear the Decepticons could use this method to force Autobot prisoners of war to fight for them. Optimus answered. Dreadwing, Suzaku tried to protest. It's all right, Suzaku. The former Seeker assured. It is necessary to gain their trust. Hold on, can we even do it? Lelouch questioned. Fix-It, have you even performed the procedure? No, I haven't, Fix-It replied in a small stutter. I can do it, Ratchet said, getting everyone's attention. As Optimus said, the Praxis City Council did not wish for the core override protocol to fall into Decepticon hands, but I learned of the procedure for the worst-case scenario, this way I could remove the implants. He looked down in partial shame. I just never thought I'd be doing the opposite. How long would it take? Lelouch asked. Not long. It would be a quick procedure. Ratchet answered. Lelouch, Nunnally tried to say something in protest. I don't like it, Lelouch told his sister. But we're short on time. Tactically speaking, it's the right move, he said reluctantly. Even Optimus seemed to agree. Proceed. He nodded to Ratchet before turning to the former Decepticon. Do not force us to use this option, Dreadwing. I won't, Dreadwing assured. Suzaku clenched his fists again as he stepped up. Do it for me, too. That took everyone by surprise, especially Lelouch, Nunnally, Shirley, and Kagaya. Suzaku, you can't be serious. Lelouch tried to stop him. We don't even have the means to do it with a human. No, but you can probably put a bomb in the Lancelot, right? Suzaku asked. It wouldn't take long, and you'd be able to kill me if it looked like I was about to try something. If Dreadwing is going through this same kind of process, then I should too. Dreadwing himself was about to protest, but Colin beat him to it. Oh no, you're not getting off that easy. Colin pulled him by the shoulder so he could look her in the eye. Dreadwing is one thing, but you, how do we know you won't fly off on your own and give us the chance to blow you up? Sorry, but we are not gonna help you with your death wish. You wanna help us, you're gonna live through it, whether you like it or not. You're not taking the easy way out, Suzaku. Not on my watch. Before Suzaku could even offer a response, Kagaya also stepped up. She's right, Suzaku. If you really want to atone, you're going to have to work to it. If you die now, you're only running away from your problems again. But not anymore, starting now, you are going to set things right. She then looked to the Black Knights and Autobots. How about instead of a bomb, we put a tracer in the Lancelot? Something that we can use to track it and make sure Suzaku can't run away. Is that enough to at least convince you all that he'll help us? The other bots and BKs looked amongst themselves before they each seemed to come to an agreement. Seems fine with me. Cliffjumper spoke for pretty much everyone. Alright then. Lelouch spoke. Ratchet, you work with Dreadwing. He then began to address everyone else. Contact Rakshata and tell her to put a tracking device into the Lancelot. Also, tell Diathard to get to the bridge. Why him? RC asked. Optimus seemed to understand Lelouch's intent. You intend to clear Euphemia's name? Yes. Lelouch confirmed, much to the subtle joy of Suzaku and Nunnally. I won't have Britannia and the Decepticons drag her through the mud. More importantly, we're going to reveal the Decepticons and their true nature to the world. They will not hide in the shadows anymore. It's time to drag them out into the light. A single ground bridge opened onto the street near the SAS as Megatron himself stepped out to survey the damage done to the area as the portal closed behind him. He silently gave the Britannians and his own soldiers credit for trying to be thorough. Honestly, if the Black Knights and Autobots hadn't been there, casualties would have been extensive. But it didn't matter now. The damage was done, all according to plan. His thoughts were interrupted when a severed Viacon head rolled toward his feet and he turned his attention to an approaching Gloucester. Megatron! Its pilot exclaimed in rage through the speakers. Cornelia! The Decepticon leader acknowledged calmly. Is there a problem? You! Cornelia gritted her teeth as her eyes surged with rage. I've tolerated much from you, but, my sister, that is a step too far. Megatron only smirked. Why is that? If anything, you should be grateful. What? Cornelia exclaimed. Euphemia was no soldier, she was no strategist, she was barely even a politician. Megatron taunted. I gave her purpose, a way to be useful to Britannia. Senseless slaughter is in your country's nature, after all. This is not about Britannia. Cornelia yelled. You hurt my sister. My sister. It wasn't just Euphemia. She also knew Zero was really Lelouch, and Nunnally was alive. The Decepticons could have killed her brother and left her younger sister in absolute sorrow, but she wouldn't say that aloud in front of Megatron. I am going to kill you. Megatron looked in amusement as he drew his blade. Take your shot. Cornelia roared like a rabid beast as she shot her Gloucester straight towards Megatron, thrusting her Nightmare's lance at him, which he easily blocked and parried with his blade. Right as she shot past him, Megatron quickly delivered a kick to the back of her Nightmare and knocked it down. However, Cornelia quickly picked her nightmare back up as she fired her rifle at Megatron, who blocked its ammunition by crossing his arms. It wasn't the same type of magnesium ammunition the Black Knight nightmares had, so Cornelia was doing little more than wasting her ammo. Megatron then returned fire with his fusion cannon as a single shot obliterated the rifle in Gloucester's right arm. Cornelia roared once more as she shot at Megatron again with her nightmare's lance, but Megatron blocked the strike with his blade before maneuvering around Cornelia to deck her nightmare in the back of its head to knock it down. Before she could even attempt to pick it back up, Megatron had already grabbed it by its foot and flipped it over himself to slam it on its back onto the ground before throwing it away, sending it skidding across the street and crashing into a building. Despite being filled with anger and hatred, Cornelia couldn't help but draw comparisons from this to her duel with Optimus in Saitama. Megatron's fighting style was nothing like the Prime's. He was utterly vicious and ruthless, yet at the same time, she could tell he was toying with her. That alone made her blood boil even more as she picked her nightmare back up and shot at Megatron once more, shooting her Harkins at him. However, Megatron easily caught one of her Harkins and pulled in Cornelia's nightmare for a devastating punch that obliterated the Gloucester's head and sent it crashing back onto the ground, where Megatron lifted and stomped his foot onto her Gloucester's right leg to crush it, before doing the same thing to the left, rendering it completely immobile. But he wasn't quite finished yet. Megatron sliced his blade into the cockpit, to cut it open and expose Cornelia inside. Despite the utter defeat, her look of ire and rage had not deterred as Megatron kneeled down to her with a smirk. "You know, Cornelia, you would actually have made a pretty decent gladiator on Cybertron." Megatron granted. "However, you are nowhere in the league of its champion. So, what do you believe to be a fitting end for the infamous goddess of victory? Do your worst, monster." Cornelia growled, expecting an execution from him, but she would not grovel before his feet. Megatron was honestly tempted to use his dark Geass on her. However, a better idea came to mind, one that caused him to smirk evilly even more. "If that is what you wish." Euphemia, still bound in webbing, cried her eyes out, her muffled sobs echoing through the cave she was trapped in. All she wanted was to help those people, to help her brother and Optimus. She wanted to bring the world together and work with those she loved and cared for to create a world where everyone could smile and be happy. Why? Why did this have to happen? She knew how horrible the Decepticons were, especially their leader, but she doubted anyone could have seen this coming. Destroying the SAS and killing all those people was one thing, but an imposter in her image being the one to start it. That all but broke her heart and crushed her spirit almost completely. Now, no need for tears. Arachnid taunted as she approached the bound princess. You did a good service to your empire. I can already see it. Euphemia, the massacre princess, Britannia, it has a nice ring to it, don't you think? She taunted as Euphy did her best to look away from Arachnid. However, both were surprised to see a ground bridge portal open near the entrance of the cave as the Decepticon leader stepped forward, with something, or rather someone, held in his right hand. Lord Megatron. Arachnid bowed. However, once Euphemia saw him, her pupils shrunk in terror as she looked at the being she could truly consider to be a devil standing before her. I have something for you, Arachnid. Megatron opened his hand to show his newly acquired prisoner, Euphemia's older sister. Cornelia's attention was caught by a series of muffled screams and yells as she looked in shock to see her younger sister and the state that she was in. Euphy. Before she could even act, Cornelia was caught in a stream of webbing shot out by Arachnid, which the She-Con quickly worked to cocoon Cornelia with. In less than a second, Cornelia was in the exact same state as her sister, strung up in webbing from neck to toe, with more web to cover her mouth as she was hung next to Euphy. Well, what do we have here? Arachnid mused as she loomed over the royal sisters, Cornelia glaring hatefully at Spider-Con. Hello Cornelia. I told you I would take good care of Euphy, didn't I? Cornelia's only response was a series of muffled curses. Cornelia was somehow able to catch on to our little rows. Megatron explained. So, I had to silence her to keep Britannia from revolting. But surely, the disappearance of the Viceroy of Area 11 in such a state of unrest will give the Britannians cause to be concerned. Arachnid said. Our newest ally will see to it that is covered. Megatron assured. But, it doesn't matter at this point. Even if Optimus and Zero find a way to clear Euphemia's name, the damage is already done. Britannian soldiers have attacked and slaughtered countless innocent humans. The planet has seen the Empire's true nature. War is now all but inevitable. Arachnid giggled. And that's not even the best part. She then turned to the bound and gagged royal sisters. What? You really think we'd start a massacre just for kicks? I mean, I would, but the rest of my friends have other plans, the destruction of Britannia. That took Cornelia and Euphy by surprise. The world has its eyes set on Area 11. Megatron began. But the battle that will unfold here is nothing more than a distraction, a red herring if you will. With this planet focused on the events here in Japan, nobody will even notice a far more gruesome fate for Charles Z. Britannia and all those currently in Pendragon. Britannia has served its purpose, but now the time has come for the Earth to understand who its true masters are. Neither Euphemia nor Cornelia could believe it. The Decepticons orchestrated the massacre of the SAS just to cause a distraction. Also that they can destroy Pendragon. What terrified them both the most was how possible it truly was. Euphemia had heard from Optimus just what the Decepticons were capable of, and Cornelia had seen for herself the superior firepower of the Decepticons as well. They really could do it. They could destroy the Holy Empire of Britannia. And the best part, we have a front row seat. Arachnid said as she revealed two large screens on the cavern wall. One had shown the current state of Area 11, which could only be described as absolute chaos. The other showed the state of Pendragon, which appeared completely normal, but not for long. What should I do with these two, Lord Megatron? Keep them alive for now. Megatron instructed. In the event our enemies discover our true intention, they could make potential bargaining chips. However, should that not happen, and our plans accomplished, they will be all yours to do as you see fit. That only excited Arachnid even more. You are too gracious, my liege. Megatron nodded in acknowledgement before contacting the Nemesis. Soundwave, send a ground bridge. Right as that command was given, a ground bridge portal had opened up, allowing Megatron to step in, right before it closed, leaving the Spider-Con alone with her two captives. Well, guess it's just us girls. Arachnid taunted as she crawled up on the ceiling and loomed over the terrified Euphemia and glaring Cornelia. It's rather ironic, isn't it? Being helpless and watching everything you've built, and the nation you call home, be torn asunder. I seem to recall your empire putting the rest of this world through that exact same thing. So, let me ask you, how does that feel? Does it hurt? Arachnid taunted as Euphemia continued to cry, and Cornelia tried to glare even harder, doing her best to hide the clear fear she was having for her younger sister. But trust me, that pain won't compare to what I have planned for you two, I'll make certain of that. You still can't get into contact with Viceroy Cornelia. Guilford exclaimed as he stood in the G1 base along with General Bartley and the other Britannian officers present. No, my lord, one officer reported. She shut off her communications as well as her tracking. We can't find her. What is she thinking? Bartley exclaimed. That entire ceremony was broadcasted nationwide. Hell, it was all over the world. Everyone saw what Princess Euphemia had done. That could not have been Princess Euphemia. Guilford exclaimed. She never held a weapon in her life. For her to start a massacre, it's impossible. We all saw it, Lord Guilford. General Bartley argued. There is no denying what we saw with our own eyes. Have you been able to contact Princess Euphemia? Guilford yelled to the officers. What about General Darlton? General Darlton has reported in and is currently with the Knights of the Round. An officer reported. But we have not seen Princess Euphemia, we are unable to contact her. What of Major Kururugi? Or even Dreadwing? Guilford exclaimed. Dreadwing and Suzaku are no longer on our side. Everyone turned around in surprise to see the second Prince of Britannia enter the G1 base, which most of them, excluding Guilford, all stood straight in attendance. Prince Schneisel. Bartley acknowledged. Your Highness, what do you mean they're not on our side? Guilford asked. It is with grief that I must report that Suzaku Kururugi and Dreadwing have defected to the Black Knights and the Autobots. Schneisel answered, much to everyone's surprise. In addition, it would seem Cornelia has been captured by the enemy. What? Guilford practically screamed. But, Schneisel knew that last part was a lie. Megatron had already contacted him and informed him that he had personally captured Cornelia after her attempt on his life and imprisoned her along with Euphemia. He'd be lying to say that he didn't expect that. He knew how much Cornelia loved Yuffie, so her overly emotional reaction was totally expected, and now, it was Schneisel's turn. Of course, Kururugi would join Zero and those metallic abominations. Bartley stated, "Once an 11, always an 11. Your Highness, are you certain of this?" Guilford wanted to make absolutely sure. "And what of Princess Euphemia?" "In regard to Kururugi, Dreadwing, and Cornelia, I am certain." Schneisel confirmed. "However, I do not know of Euphemia's whereabouts. Because of that, I am now assuming command of Area 11, effective immediately." "But Your Highness," Guilford tried to say something, but Schneisel raised his hand as he spoke calmly. "Lord Guilford, please try to understand the current situation. Virtually all of Area 11 is in a state of total chaos, and it is missing both its viceroy and sub-viceroy. It needs a leader to try and re-establish order. But once that is done, we will try to find them, I promise," Schneisel assured. "However, first we must." However, before he could continue, his as well as everyone else's attention was caught by the static that appeared on the main screen. And before they could even attempt to clear it out, the static cleared to show the image of Zero and Optimus Prime standing together in a foreign location. Standing by the side of Optimus were most of the Autobots: Bumblebee, RC, Cliffjumper, Bulkhead, Wheeljack, and Ironhide. And standing beside Zero were a group of individuals including Ogi, Toto, Katase, Kagaya, Kirihara, and the other heads of Kyoto, and even Suzaku Kururugi was present, standing right next to Zero himself. It was not just seen from the G1 base either. Virtually every digital screen in the entire country, from home televisions, laptops, smartphones, even jumbotrons throughout the settlement, they were all showing this live broadcast. Essentially, every single living person in Area 11 was now watching. And it wasn't just Japan, all the other nations of the world were watching as well, including the other superpowers such as the Chinese Federation and even the EU. "Attention, people of the planet Earth," Zero began to announce. "The Ark, you have all been deceived," Zero announced as he stood on the catwalk of the bridge, alongside his gathered human allies, with the Autobots standing present as well, excluding Ratchet and Fix-It, who were in the medical bay working to install the core override implants into Dreadwing. Gathered below were virtually every Black Knight they had recruited, along with a vast number of Japanese citizens they've rescued from the SAS, those who weren't receiving medical treatment at least. This included the four Holy Swords, Tamaki, Colin, Rai, Inoue, Sugiyama, Yoshida, Minami, and even Diethard. Rakshata was not currently present as she and her team were working with the recently acquired Lancelot, as well as all the other Black Knight nightmares. The Special Administrative Zone of Japan, created by the kind-hearted Princess Euphemia, was a genuine attempt to unite the world against a common enemy and end the fighting that has long since plagued our world, spearheaded by the fascist Britannian Empire. Zero announced. And how was she repaired for act of selflessness? She was replaced by a soulless machine in her likeness to start a massacre. All the televisions across Area 11 were shown images of the recovered pretender drone bearing Euphemia's likeness, as well as a skeletal image of its internal components to show it was indeed a machine. Everyone, even those in the Ashford Student Council, consisting of rivals, Nina, and Millie, looked in genuine shock and horror, especially in the case of Nina as her eyes widened and pupils shook. However, this is not the only deception. Now it was Optimus' turn to speak. The Britannian Empire itself, for all its power and strength, is nothing more than a shadow. A facade for an even greater evil, the Decepticons. A faction of automatous robotic organisms from the planet Cybertron. Likewise, footage and images of the Decepticons and their various atrocities on both Cybertron and recently with Earth were played on the broadcast, including with the television in the room that Nunnally and Lelouch shared. The paralyzed girl listened as she could already feel a tense situation in the air, which was somewhat soothed as Sayoko Patton stroked her back, sitting down next to her as Cece and Shirley also stood close to Nunnally to continue watching the broadcast. Despite being a mere puppet empire, Britannia is not innocent in their acts of aggression and even outright genocide. And they must be held accountable for that. Zero continued to announce as all the Black Knights below cheered for their leader, and the citizens to their savior. Charles Z. Britannia, and those who willingly follow him, are the living embodiment of Britannia's hypocrisy. Their seemingly devotion to the concept of evolution yet refused to change with the rest of the planet. The world wants peace. Euphemia wanted peace. But Charles Z. Britannia and the even more vile Decepticons do not. Their massacre of the Special Administrative Zone, their attempt to sully Princess Euphemia's good name is proof enough for that. This madness must come to end. Optimus continued. We will not allow the atrocities of Britannia and the Decepticons to continue. This is the goal of the Black Knight and Autobot Alliance, to free the planet Earth from this tyranny. Freedom is right of all sentient beings, and we will fight to preserve that freedom from all those who would take that freedom away, regardless their origin. With that, we hereby declare the independence of Area 11 from Britannian subjugation. Zero revealed. However, this is not the resurrection of the old Japan, but the birth of something new, a nation where nobody is oppressed for their gender, race, ideology, or even species. This is the United States of Japan. That resulted in even more cheers from all the Black Knights and gathered citizens. Even Diethard had a fanatic smile. They've done it. They've actually created a whole new nation. The United States of Japan. Suzaku thought as he spared a glance at Zero. He had to give Lelouch credit. He is going all the way and shows no signs of slowing down. This is our declaration to the Britannian government and Decepticon forces occupying this new nation. Optimus began. You are to be exiled from the United States of Japan immediately. Citizens who are of Britannian nationality, and yet support freedom and equality, are welcome to stay. You will not be persecuted or prejudiced against in the USJ. If the Britannian government leaves peacefully, we will respect it and there will be no need for battle. However, if you resist and choose to wage war, the alliance of Black Knights and Autobots will fight you with everything we have, and we will win. You have 24 hours to make your peace, Britannia. Zero gave the final warning. Declare your surrender and leave United States of Japan. And for the Decepticons, your time is at an end. You can either leave Earth now and forever, or you will face total destruction. Till all are one, Optimus declared. Till all are one. All the Autobots spoke aloud as they raised their fists, even Bumblebee bleeped with them as well. Till all are one. Till all are one. Colin was the first to shout, followed by Rai, Tamaki, Chiba, Asahina, Urabe, Senba, and all their collages. Till all are one. Till all are one. Till all are one. Till all are one. Everyone shouted all at once while raising their fists, even those gathered alongside Zero. Till all are one. Ogi shouted, raising his fist high, along with Katase and the 6 heads of Kyoto, and even Toto raised his katana. Till all are one. Though he was hesitant at first, Suzaku raised his fist and joined them. Till all are one. Back on G1, the broadcast had ended as virtually everyone was left speechless, all except Schneisel, who did his best to hide his smirk. As dramatic as ever, Lelouch. He put on a serious face as he gave his order. Evacuate the settlement. That took everyone by surprise. My lord, Bartley exclaimed. We only have 24 hours, that's not long. Schneisel said. Fortunately, I already have a plan in place, should something like this happen. It's not enough time to evacuate the entire country, but I believe the Autobots and Black Knights will attack the Tokyo settlement first, so we should focus all our efforts there. But, Your Highness, Guilford tried to speak. Zero, and Prime, they just said, Euphemia was replaced. Probably just lies to gain more support for their cause. Bartley dismissed. They think they can overthrow us, or to even say we stand in the shadow of those vile Decepticons. We will show them the true strength of the Holy Empire of Britannia. Area 11 is ours. We will not let them steal it from us. And we won't, Schneisel assured. But, our first priority is the protection of our nation's citizens. Therefore, we will begin their evacuation immediately. I trust Bismarck and the others to handle the military affairs. As you wish, Your Highness. Bartley bowed. Guilford wanted to protest. Hell, he wanted to go out and find Euphemia and Cornelia himself, but at the same time, he knew that Schneisel was right. The Autobots and Black Knights had declared open war and would march in the settlement in less than 24 hours. As a soldier and knight of Britannia, Guilford's duty was to protect his people, and that is just what he would do. Yes, Your Majesty. Guilford accepted. However, once that was all done, nothing was going to stop him from finding Cornelia and Euphemia and bringing them home. The evacuation of the Tokyo settlement was well underway. Under Schneisel's instructions, the military's efforts to escort all the citizens out of the city was astounding, so much so that by the time they reached the 24-hour deadline Zero and the Autobots had given them, the city would not only be completely cleared out of all civilians, but the military would also assemble a large enough defense line to surround the entire settlement. Ashford Academy had already been cleared out for the most part. Due to it being a weekend, all the teachers and faculty were already home and were currently being evacuated with the rest of the citizens. The student body had already been evacuated as well. All that was left were the 3 members of the student council, as Millie had to make sure the last person had left the school. "All right, grandfather." Millie spoke over the phone with her grandfather, the principal of Ashford, who had already left himself. "Yeah, all the students have left, I'm just making sure. Don't worry, I'll be fine, the student council and I are about to leave." "All right, yeah, love you too, bye." She hung up as she gave a sigh. "Well, Lelouch, looks you're dead serious," she thought to herself. "I'm just glad that you, Nunnally, and everyone else are all safe." "So, this is it, huh?" Rivals asked as he packed the last of his things from the council room. "This is the end of Ashford Academy." "Who knows?" Millie confessed. "Anything can happen. I'm just wondering where Lelouch and everyone else is. I hope they're all okay." Rivals said. "I already got off the phone with Lelouch," Millie said. "He and Nunnally are just fine, and I'm sure everyone else is too." "That's good to hear," Rivals said, feeling relieved. Though Millie regretted lying to her friend like that, she knew that Lelouch could handle himself. "Where's Nina?" she asked. "Still in the council room," Rivals said. "I couldn't get her to leave, no matter what I tried." "Let me handle it," Millie said as she entered the student council room, followed by Rivals. Though Nina herself couldn't be seen right away, Millie only need look under the table to find Nina curled up in a fetal position and was reduced to a stuttering mess. "Nina," Millie spoke gently as she crawled underneath the table to join her. "It's time to go." "I can't go out there," Nina stuttered. 11s, Autobots, they'll be everywhere. Princess Euphemia is gone, I can't." "Nina." Millie put a gentle hand on her shoulder to calm her down slightly as the bespectacled girl looked towards her as Millie gave a genuine smile. "You're going to be okay. They aren't here, yet. We have a whole day before anything crazy happens, that's plenty of time to leave." "But, Princess Euphemia, I'm sure she'll be fine," Millie assured. "There's plenty of good people out there looking for her. You just have to have a little faith." Though Nina assumed Millie was talking about the Britannian military, the blonde actually spoke in regard to Lelouch, the Autobots, and their other friends. "You have faith, don't you, Nina? Faith that Princess Euphemia is safe. And that these good people can keep us safe as well." This seemed to be enough to calm Nina down a bit, to the point where she gave a single nod. "Then let's go." Millie offered Nina her hand, which Nina gently reached out to take as Millie helped her out from under the table. Rivals, Millie, and Nina had left the clubhouse, already nighttime, with about 18 hours left in Zero's deadline. The 3 spared one last glance at the clubhouse, as if something inside told them that this might be the last time that they would see it. "Well, goodbye Ashford Academy. It's been fun." Rivals voiced his thoughts aloud with a sad smile. "Come on, we had better." However, before they could even take another step forward, they heard the loud sound of massive rapid flapping wings. As they looked in shock toward the sky to see what appeared to be a giant insect flying down toward them before it transformed and landed in front of them to reveal itself to be the Decepticon leader, Hardshell. "Millie Ashford." Hardshell spoke as 3 students fell back in clear fear, with Nina screaming at the sight of the Insecticon while hiding behind Millie. "You and your friends are not going anywhere." Suddenly, 2 more Insecticons flew in before they transformed and surrounded the students. "Wah! What the hell are these things?" Rivals practically screamed as Nina shook like a leaf, clinging to Millie like a lifeline. Millie's eyes shook at the sight of such horrific monsters, but her gut told her that she knew exactly what they are. "Lelouch, are these the aliens you told me about? The Decepticons? The Ark?" As the other Autobots and Black Knights worked to get everything ready for the battle to come, Ironhide took the time to speak with Suzaku in private within one of the Ark's cargo holds. Toto was present as well. Though Suzaku said he would help them, Ironhide wanted to be certain that what Lelouch and Optimus had already told him had before arriving would stick. Todo felt the same way, as he wanted to believe his student was genuine about helping them. They were at war and they needed proof. Shirley was also in the cargo hold, more off to the side as she listened to them speak. A part of her wanted to contribute to this conversation, but Ironhide had already told her this was necessary. He would allow Shirley to listen, but she couldn't interfere. You say you're in, but we have to know that you're serious about it, and not just using us as an excuse to get yourself killed like you did when joined the military. Ironhide spoke to Suzaku as the later sat on a large box that was half at Ironhide's height. Todo also stood on the same box as he looked toward Suzaku. I'm guessing Lelouch was the one who told you about my father, not Todo like he said, right? Suzaku assumed. Lelouch figured it out, yes. Todo confirmed. But the Autobots needed confirmation, so I told them what had happened that day. I see. Suzaku looked down. Shirley looked towards him with sympathy but chose to remain quiet as per Ironhide and Todo's wish. Was that also the reason you joined the Decepticons? Ironhide questioned. True, Megatron might take most of the blame given how he's able to bring others to his side, so it must have been pretty easy for him to get inside your head. But, I gotta ask, why didn't you just use your father's death to rise up in the ranks? I mean, I can think of a few certain cons or Britannians that would probably reward you for something like that. Not just for killing the Prime Minister and making Japan's fall that much easier, but even give you a reward for patricide alone. You really see the worst in Britannia, don't you? Suzaku questioned in response, his expression still facing toward the ground. Given who's in charge of the whole thing, what do you expect? Ironhide replied. Maybe you're right, but I didn't want to use murder as a way to work up the ladder. Suzaku answered. Or maybe I just didn't think it was necessary. Did you really believe you could change Britannia from within? Todo questioned. Or was that something you told yourself so you would try to have a clear conscience if you died? There's also the fact that you became Euphemia's knight. Ironhide stated. From what Lelouch told us, she was one of the few good apples in the royal family. Maybe she saw what you were trying to do and wanted to help you with it, or maybe she wanted to help you with your death wish. Because if that's the case, Yuffie had absolutely nothing to do with that. Suzaku spoke immediately, his expression remained unchanged. She didn't even know about my father until after Kaname Island. And maybe I was trying to get myself killed, but I truly believed that she could change Britannia from within. That is the absolute truth, and that is why I accepted being her knight, because I wanted to support her. Ironhide could read the expression on Suzaku's face, and though he had not met Euphemia personally, he could tell that from the way he spoke, there was more to Suzaku and Euphemia's relationship than just soldier and royalty, perhaps even more than respect or genuine friendship. HMMP, a knight falling for the princess, huh? Well, what do you know? Please tell me we can save her. Suzaku's fists clenched. That we can, that she's still. He couldn't even finish the sentence. We don't even know if she's still alive. Todo stated. But if she is, I'm certain Optimus and Lelouch are going to do everything in their power to see to that. But back to the topic at hand, if you are really willing to work with us, Suzaku, are you willing to admit you made the wrong choice? What choice would that be? Suzaku questioned, looking down even further, his hair covering his eyes so nobody could read his expression. Were you wrong in joining the cons? Ironhide questioned first. Yes. Suzaku replied. They weren't who I thought they were, with the exception of Dreadwing. But you were still wrong about Megatron actually helping you. Ironhide pointed out. Suzaku instantly recalled being subjected to the cortical psychic patch shortly after the Kaname Island incident. That was enough to confirm that Suzaku had made the wrong choice back then. Yes, I was so wrong about that. What about joining the Britannian military? Using them to fulfill your own means? Todo questioned. As well as you saying that Britannia can change. I truly believed Yuffie could do good. That if anyone could change Britannia, it would be her. Suzaku replied. But, I know now, that there are those, who can't change. Like the Emperor? Todo asked. Yes. Suzaku confirmed. And what happened about your father? Ironhide continued. Not just killing him, but trying to get yourself killed, and abandoning those you said you care about, like Lelouch and Nunnally. 'Cause at the end, that's all you were ever gonna do. Suicide is not atonement, it's running away. No matter how much Suzaku didn't want to admit it, he could no longer hide from that fact. He was really just selfish all this time. He could go on and say it was the only path for him, but by getting himself killed, he would make all those he cared about sad. He would hurt them, and that was the last thing he wanted. Yes, Suzaku sounded as if he was trying to force that out. Quote. I really was just trying to abandon my life. I didn't think it had any value left, or maybe they'd be better off without me. Finally sinked into your thick skull, huh? About damn time. Ironhide's words caused Suzaku to look up at the veteran Autobot, who was more than a little surprised to see a half-smile on his face. Some people might tell you there's no such thing as second chances in life, but that's for those who don't want to change, or are too impatient and want immediate results. Second chances, Suzaku said in a tone that almost sounded like Ironhide was speaking to him in a foreign tone. Even after everything. Believe it or not, Dreadwing's not the first Decepticon to come over to our side. Ironhide replied. The point is, Suzaku. Todo began as he approached his former student. You can still change, you can still do good in this world, despite the crimes and mistakes you've committed. It won't be easy, but it's not impossible for you to regain your honor. You might even face some resentment from those in our ranks, but as long as you are willing to accept responsibility and give not only these people, but also yourself, a chance, the old swordsman gave a small smile. Maybe you might finally be able to let it all go. Suzaku could not offer any kind of response, the only thing he seemed to be able to do was hang his head down slightly as he let some tears flow down his cheeks. Todo put a hand on his shoulder as he let the boy sob, and even Ironhide gave a nod of approval. Shirley, who still hung in the back, had a genuine smile on her face, truly happy to see that her friend has finally walked out of the darkness and into the light. Welcome to the Black Knights, Suzaku. Dreadwing's optics opened as he awoke from stasis. The former Seeker groaned as he slowly brought himself up from the large pad he was laying on within the Ark's medbay. He found he wasn't alone. Besides the Autobot medic who operated on him, along with Fix-It, Optimus Prime was present, along with Louch, Nunnally, and even CC at the girl's wheelchair. Take it easy, Dreadwing. Ratchet eased. You've only just emerged from stasis. Can I assume the procedure went accordingly? Dreadwing asked. Yes. Fix-It responded. The core override implants are now thoroughly integrated within your brain module. Are you certain of this, Dreadwing? Optimus asked. There are other methods to prove you can be trusted. I'm certain. Dreadwing confirmed as he sat up straight. I believe that this to be proper atonement for my past misdeeds. Make sure you prove that with your actions from this point forward. Lelouch told him. Once you have, we'll have those implants removed. I'll admit they sound effective on paper, but I find the idea to be absolutely repulsive. Dreadwing nodded in acknowledgement as he spared a glance at not only the human revolutionary that had caused Britannia and the Decepticons so much trouble, but also the disabled girl next to him. The infamous Zero is really the exiled prince, Lelouch v Britannia. Dreadwing observed. I honestly did not see that coming. Though, given your history, it really shouldn't be all that surprising. So, you know about all that. Lelouch said in a serious tone of voice. I've done my research. Dreadwing replied. And it's one of the reasons I am disgusted with most of the Britannian royal family, excluding Euphemia of course. The Emperor sentenced you and your sister to exile, and later ordered the invasion of the same land you were exiled toward. Even after your presumed deaths, he and his followers blamed the Japanese, despite that they were the ones responsible. He gave a scoff. I've heard that same sort of thing before. The former caste system of Cybertron. Lelouch stated. Optimus told me about all that. Is that why you joined Megatron, because he opposed that system? Partly, yes. Dreadwing nodded. But also, because I believed he was fighting for the equality of all Cybertronians. Though it seems I was mistaken. Even though we may have been on opposite sides, Dreadwing, you have never once strayed from your path of honor when compared to other Decepticons who indulged in their reprehensible methods. Optimus acknowledged. You may have been an enemy, but you were still someone I could respect. Despite the words of Optimus, there was still something the former Decepticon needed to know. Prime, on Kaname Island, you mentioned there was more to Skyquake's death than I know. Optimus' expression turned into that of grief as even Ratchet had a similar look on his own face. Who is Skyquake? Nunnally asked. A Decepticon seeker who perished in the war for Cybertron. Fix-It answered. He is also Dreadwing's twin brother. Brother. Lelouch thought in surprise as this was the first time that he has heard of it. Even CC looked in interest. As many of you already know, Megatron had attempted to infuse the core of Cybertron with dark energon in an attempt to control the planet itself. Optimus explained. I led a small team of Autobots to the core in an attempt to purge the dark energon. However, while I was indeed too late, I learned I wasn't the only one who attempted to thwart Megatron's ambition. It would seem, that is Skyquake's intention as well. Dreadwing gave Optimus his undivided attention, as did everyone else as the Autobot leader continued. From what he had told me, Skyquake tried to stop Megatron from poisoning our planet. Optimus continued. He feared the damage to the core could be irreparable, and he was correct. However, Megatron struck him down and left him for dead. That caused Nunnally to gasp as even Lelouch's eyes widened. But none were more surprised than Dreadwing as his expression of shock could not be described with mere words. When my team and I found him, Skyquake's body had almost been entirely deteriorated, corrupted, poisoned, and destroyed from prolonged exposure to dark energon. Optimus explained as his expression became somber. My team and I tried to bring him to the surface for medical treatment. I was just outside the Omega Gate at the time. Now it was Ratchet's turn to speak. Skyquake was brought to me and I tried to save him as best I could, but the dark energon had affected his biology on a sub-micron level. The corruption was too thorough. At that point, the only thing I could really do for him was make sure his passing was painless. Nunnally was almost brought to tears at that, prompting CC to put her hands on both the younger girl's shoulders. Lelouch's fists clenched so tightly under his cape, his knuckles almost turned white. Fix-It looked down in sorrow as well. But none were more sorrowful and enraged than Dreadwing himself. Megatron had killed his brother and lied to him about it. Skyquake was nothing short of loyal to the Decepticon cause. He wanted to save Cybertron and bring about a new golden age where all could live as equals. How was he repaid for that? Termination. Dreadwing however forced himself to calm down as now was not the time to let his anger consume him. He would save that for the battlefield. Thank you for telling me this. Now I know the truth. He soon felt a small and gentle touch on his right leg, and looked in minor surprise to see Nunnally, with CC still at her wheelchair, having rolled up toward him to put a comforting hand on his leg. I'm so sorry, Dreadwing. Nunnally said as she tried to wipe the tears from her eyes. I know what it's like to lose someone you love. But, you've also saved someone that I loved too. So, let me thank you for saving Suzaku, and helping to protect Yuffie. She smiled at him. Though appreciative of the gesture, Dreadwing honestly felt more shame than comfort. Your thanks are misplaced, young one. I may have saved Suzaku, but I failed Euphemia. His look of grief and rage persisted. I respected her and swore to protect her. I swore on my spark. But I failed. Now she is in the clutches of Megatron. I don't even know if she's alive. That last comment really caused Lelouch's blood to boil. Nunnally, I swear that I will do everything in my power to find and save her. And if I cannot do that, then I will avenge her. Megatron, and all those who support him, will pay for their deceptions and crimes. You're damn right he will. Lelouch thought as his eyes burnt with a raging fire inside. Optimus was able to read the expression on the young revolutionary and had a good idea what he was intending on. Please excuse us. Optimus spoke to everyone present. I must speak with Lelouch alone. Lelouch looked in surprise, but everyone else seemed to understand. All right. Ratchet nodded as he helped Dreadwing to stand to his feet and the two walked out of the med bay, followed by CC and Fix-It with Nunnally. Though she was concerned as to what Optimus and her brother had to discuss, she was certain Optimus would be able to help him. She didn't have to see Lelouch's face to tell he was angry with what was going on. Once everyone had left, Optimus looked toward the former prince. Lelouch, are you alright? No, I'm not. Lelouch exclaimed as he allowed his anger to reach the surface. Megatron, he abducted my sister. Massacred so many innocent people. And if that wasn't bad enough, he used a machine in her likeness to do it. All she wanted to do was help people. Not just them, she wanted to help us too. She only wanted to help. And that, the Britannians didn't even hesitate to join the slaughter. They didn't even wait to further tarnish her own name. They talk about how superior royalty is to everyone else, but when said royalty questions them, or tries to change something, Lelouch slammed his fists onto the nearest wall in anger. Damn them all. Britannia. The Decepticons. Megatron and Charles, they can all burn in hell. Optimus allowed Lelouch to vent his anger and frustration, but not long after he let his anger out, Optimus heard a sob escape from Lelouch's throat as he slid down toward the floor. I should have done something. Lelouch held a hand over his face, trying not to face Optimus with his teary expression. I was right there before she was taken. I could have brought her to the Ark where she would be safe. Why didn't I? Is this all my fault? No, it is not. Optimus said immediately as he walked closer to the sobbing boy. Lelouch, what has occurred at the special zone was not your fault. It was the fault of Megatron, who abducted and replaced her to begin with. I had suspected he would try to use the special zone to his advantage, but I never could have foreseen something like that. None of us could have. But I should have done something. Lelouch continued to sob. I knew that there would be people, and cons, that wouldn't approve of her decision. Why didn't I bring her to the Ark? At least she would have been safe. You did what you believed was the right choice. Optimus told him. Lelouch, do you recall what we said to you when you learned of the passing of Shirley's father? Lelouch's sobs slowed down as he remembered what was said back then. Some things are outside our control. Exactly. Optimus confirmed. Maybe if we had done things differently, the outcome would have been different as well. But we cannot allow our past mistakes to overcome us. Instead, we must learn from them and grow. You had no control over Megatron's actions, none of us did. This seemed to calm down Lelouch slightly as he glanced up to the Autobot leader. I understand how you feel. You have every right to hate Megatron for what he did, just as I do now. His actions are unforgivable, as are that of Charles Z. Britannia. You can use that anger to drive you, and it can indeed become a sharp tool. However, you cannot allow that hatred to consume you, for if you do, you will lose yourself, and all that will be left in your wake is more destruction. So, what can I do? Lelouch asked. Use your righteous anger, but also allow your devotion of justice to temper your rage. Optimus told him. Become the symbol and ideal that you have inspired throughout all of Japan. Allow yourself to become the savior that they see you as, someone who can show the world, that even in the face of pure evil, you can still rise to face it and ultimately triumph. You can ignite the spark of courage and hope that is needed to ignite the necessary revolution to save this planet from the tyranny that has been destroying it for so long. Lelouch looked up to Optimus Prime in awe, before he reminded himself just who it was that was helping him. This was always why he revered the Autobot leader and saw him as the father figure that he always wanted. I can't do it alone. Optimus, will you help me? Please. Optimus need only smiled as he kneeled down closer to Lelouch's level. Lelouch, I will always help you, whenever you need me. No matter what happens, I will never leave your side. Lelouch's smile could not properly describe the gratefulness and joy he felt in his own heart upon hearing those words. Thank you. The evacuation of the Tokyo settlement is well underway. One officer reported as Guilford, Darlton, and Nonette were in a conference room along with multiple military commanders. It should be done within only a few hours. However, there are insurrections all over the area. Another officer stated. What happened at the special zone spread like wildfire. All the insurgent groups have joined the Black Knights and Autobot forces and are advancing closer to the Tokyo settlement. With Kururugi having joined the Autobots and Black Knights, nearly every honorary Britannian, and even multiple Britannian civilians have joined together. How could they have organized such a force so fast? A separate officer questioned. It's already numbering within the tens of thousands, and it's only growing larger by the second. We all know how good Zero and Prime are when it comes to strategy. Guilford stated. They're probably utilizing their ground bridge system to transport their forces closer to the settlement while coordinating with the leaders of the various uprisings. What is the extent of the damage? Darlton asked. So far, it seems they've avoided all civilian targets. An officer answered. Casualties are surprisingly minimal, and all have been military. In addition, it seems that while they are closing in around the settlement, they are not yet attacking. Another officer said. They gave us 24 hours, and only 15 have passed. Nonette reminded. It seems they've kept their word. Despite the professionalism she spoke, both Guilford and Darlton have noticed an expression within the eyes of the Knight of Nine. Her eyes were ragged with some bags underneath, suggesting that she might have been crying for a few hours. But why she had cried, neither of them could understand. Was it because Euphemia and Cornelia were missing? Or was there another reason behind it? Any word from the Decepticons? No, Ned asked. With something this massive, there's no way they haven't noticed. No word yet, Lady Enneagram. One officer answered. Keep an eye out and prepare for battle should something occur. No, Ned instructed. That took most people in the room by surprise, including Darlton and Guilford. Lady Enneagram, are you suggesting that we fight the Decepticons? Guilford asked. I understand why you feel they can't be trusted, but with these insurrections. I'm not blind to what's happening. She almost snapped at him but tried to speak in a professional manner. I just have a really bad feeling that the real enemy is already here. Meanwhile, Gino sat in his own private quarters within the royal palace, looking at a group photograph on his cell phone of the entire student council. He heard the door opened and looked up to see Monica. I thought I'd find you in here. Monica walked in and kneeled down in front of him. Bismarck and the others are looking for you. They don't need me for all this strategy and planning stuff. Gino said, not taking his eyes off his phone. We have less than 9 hours till the Black Knights and Autobots arrive. Monica said, we should be getting ready soon. Yeah, Gino said as he still looked at the picture, even Monica could see it from her angle as well. You think they're gonna be okay? I'm sure they're fine, Monica assured. They've probably all been evacuated already. You know how effective Prince Schneisel said. Except Suzaku. Gino said, causing Monica to wince. You heard how he went over to join the bots and BKs, right? Well, you think maybe we're on the wrong side then. And we should have gone too. I mean, you saw what happened at the SAS. I get we're soldiers and we gotta fight and all that, but those were innocent people back there. I don't care if they were, 11s. Nobody deserves that. You're right. Monica nodded. Gino, you're absolutely right. That was pure madness. So, why are we still fighting them? Gino asked. Shouldn't we be helping even though we know it's wrong? Before Monica could offer a response, another individual had walked into the room. We have sworn our loyalty to Charles Z. Britannia. The pair looked to see Anya walking as she continued to look into her video diary. As soldiers of the Empire, we must do our duty. At least that's what Bismarck would say. Yeah, that's what he would say, but what about you, Anya? Gino asked. What do you think about all that? I do not know. Because I don't remember. Anya's response caused Monica and Gino to look at her in surprise. My nightmare's surveillance indicated I did battle with one of the Autobots, but I have no recollection of that. Everything is a blank ever since we received orders from the Emperor to destroy the special zone. Another one of your blackouts? Monica asked. Why then of all times? I do not know. Anya answered. I do not really know anything. I never truly do. The Ark. Multiple medical wards had been set up if in the event a large portion of their own human soldiers needed medical treatment, but at the moment, these wards served as places to treat all the survivors of the SAS massacre that the Autobots and Black Knights were able to rescue. The Black Knights have been able to recruit medical staff to their cause, not just Japanese or honorary Britannians, but even full-blooded Britannians that were professional doctors, at least those who were more open-minded and were willing to treat the so-called 11s, when the more patriotic doctors only choose to treat Britannians. While there were many civilians with only minor injuries like scrapes and bruises, there were plenty that needed serious medical treatment for bullet wounds, internal bleeding, and other various severe wounds. Though thanks to the advancements in medical technology that the Autobots could provide, there would be no fatalities here, not on their watch. In one of the wards, was Mrs. Kazuki, who sat on her bed next to her daughter, clad in her full Black Knight uniform, having told her mother everything already, from her status as one of the elite troops in the Black Knights, to even the Autobots, war against the Decepticons and how they are worse than Britannia ever could be. She even explained how Louch and Nunnally were really the presumed deceased prince and princess of Britannia, and that the former was really Zero. Colin looked at her mother, who hadn't said anything since she spoke and allowed her daughter to explain everything. But even after she was finished, her mother remained silent. Colin honestly wondered if she had even been listening at all. Mom, are you still with me? Colin gently shook her mother by the shoulder. Yeah, I just don't know what to think. Mrs. Kazuki stuttered. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised you're fighting. Given how much you hate Britannia, I just never thought you'd actually do it. She looked at her daughter with an understandably worried expression. This is exactly how I lost your brother Colin. I never wanted. I know. Colin nodded. Believe me, I do. I'm so sorry I never told you. I couldn't sit by and watch while all this was happening. Zero, the Autobots, they gave me hope. They showed me that I can stand up and fight for what's right. And that we can change the world. However, Colin's resolve wavered slightly. I never told you before because I was worried you'd go back to refrain. I didn't want you to. However, she felt a gentle touch on her cheek and was surprised to see her mother looking at her with a sad yet loving smile. I think I understand. I know probably can't stop you, but let me just say that I am so proud of you. Never once, in a million years, did Colin expect her mother to say that to her. She had actually expected her mother to break down and cry once she spilt the beans, but to actually hear her own mother say she was proud of what she was doing, Colin honestly didn't have the words for that. You're my little girl, of course I'm going to be worried for you. Mrs. Kazuki began. But, I know you, Colin. I know how strong you are, how much you care about your friends, how much you want to help people, and how good of a person you are. You're just like your brother. Tears of joy were forming in her eyes. Just promise me, I won't lose you too. Colin wasted no time in wrapping her arms around her mother, who returned the gesture. I promise. After a few minutes, they parted as Colin smiled and helped her mother to her feet. Come on, there's some people I want you to meet. She helped her mother out of the ward and into the large hallway, where the first people, or rather bots, that they saw were the Autobot duo RC and Cliffjumper. Though she had already seen them at the SAS when they rescued her and that child, it was still a sight to behold. How'd she take it? RC asked Colin. A lot better than I thought. The redhead replied before turning to her mother. Mom, meet RC and Cliffjumper, some of my closest friends. Nice to meet ya. Cliffjumper smiled as he kneeled down closer. You raised one hell of a kid. At the same time, Shirley faced Suzaku in a separate hallway within the arc as this particular conversation was something that they needed to get out of the way. So, you're a Black Knight, too. Suzaku said to his fellow student council member. Yeah, Shirley nodded. Does everyone else know? Suzaku asked. Excluding Lulu, Nunnally, Colin and Rai, only you. Shirley answered. But Millie figured it out and chose to keep quiet. Rivals and Nina don't, and neither does Monica, Gino, or Anya. And how long have you been with them? Suzaku continued to ask. Shortly after my father died. Shirley replied. And I know what you're gonna say next, Suzaku. Why would I join the same group responsible for his death, right? Yeah, I never once considered, they killed your father, Shirley. Suzaku stated. It was an accident. She quickly replied. Lulu and Optimus even tried to get Narita evacuated before the fighting started. They've always tried to avoid dragging innocent people into this. But still, Suzaku looked like he was about to argue, but Shirley already had her response. We can't control everything. Nobody can. Not even Lelouch. She told him. And when he found out, he took it really hard. You should have seen how upset he and Rai were, even Colin was upset. But, it's not like they actually wanted to do it. Though there was a part of him that understood that, there was still more that he wanted to talk about. So, how'd you figure out he's Zero? By complete accident. Shirley began to explain. I ended up caught in the middle of a big fight and I saw Zero knocked out right in front of me. I took his gun and I was almost ready to shoot him, to get revenge for my father. That took Suzaku by surprise, though at the time he would have felt Zero deserved it. But to hear Shirley actually consider killing someone, it was almost impossible for him to believe. But, his mask fell off and I saw his face, I saw Lelouch's face. After that, I didn't know what to think. I was just so confused and so angry, and, you remember that guy who kidnapped Nunnally at school? That guy who had her tied to a bomb. Suzaku was confused as to why she brought Mao up, but nodded, nonetheless. Yes. Well, I met him at Narita a little bit after I found out Lelouch's secret. Shirley revealed, much to Suzaku's surprise. He knew Lelouch was 0, too. He even knew about what happened to my dad and he tried to convince me to kill Lelouch and not just him, he even wanted me to kill Nunnally. That caused Suzaku to look in even further shock. He tried to manipulate me. But instead, he ended up tying me up and using me to get to Lelouch. That guy tormented him, he wanted to make Lulu suffer. He was even going to kill me right in front of him. But Rai and Bumblebee saved us, they saved me. After that, they told me everything. It took a while, but I understood. When I learned why Lelouch was fighting, why the Colin and Rai, and the Black Knights, knowing what they've all lost to Britannia, and what the Autobots all lost to the Decepticons, I couldn't just sit by anymore. I wanted to help them. You wanted to become a Black Knight yourself. Suzaku figured out, to which Shirley nodded in confirmation. I'm surprised that they even let you in. Lulu was dead set against it at first. Shirley quickly said. And I don't really blame him. But I was able to convince him to let me in. And during that time, I've gotten to know all the Autobots, and most of the Black Knights here. They're not terrorists or monsters that the media have made them out to be, they're all good people, who just lost everything. Now they're fighting to take it back, and if I can help them, even just a little bit, that's enough for me. But surely, you're not a soldier, Suzaku tried to tell her. Which is why I'm working in intelligence. Shirley quickly replied. I know I can't fight. Trust me, I've made more than my fair share of mistakes since joining, but I'm gonna give up. I won't give up on any of them, that includes you, Suzaku. I know what happened to your dad, and I know you've made more mistakes yourself since then, but you're not a bad person. I know there's good in you, so do Lulu and Optimus, and many others. They're all willing to give you a chance to make things right, and so am I. But will you give us a chance? Suzaku looked at Shirley in complete and total surprise. She was nothing like the schoolgirl he met at Ashford, she's become someone who is willing to stand up and voice her thoughts, even in the form of actions. She's even admitted she's made her fair share of mistakes, but is willing to learn and push past them in order to make things better for everyone. For that reason, Suzaku chooses to trust her. I will. Suzaku nodded, causing Shirley to smile. For a moment, I almost thought you wanted to join just because of your crush on him. That caused Shirley's smile to fade as she gave him an irritated look. Do I really seem that shallow to you? You already know how I feel about Lulu, Suzaku, but that's got nothing to do with why I joined. I know that. I just wanted to make sure. Suzaku assured. Shirley let out a small sigh as she let a smile form on her face again. But I am glad that you're finally here, Suzaku. Trust me, you're gonna like our side better. Suzaku gave a small smile of his own. I hope so. Meanwhile, Bulkhead and Rai were together in an empty cargo hold as Rai sat on the catwalk that hung just above the large green Autobot. So, where's Wheeljack? Rai asked. Jackie's got something going on with the higher-ups. Bulkhead answered. Said something about using his expertise. And Dreadwing's with him. Those two together, they'd make one hell of a bang. Rai attempted a joke, causing Bulkhead to chuckle, but the wrecker saw through his young friend's demeanor. Rai, what's up? Bulkhead asked, causing Ray's fake smile to face as a look of clear anger and rage formed. The Saz, what happened back there? It was just like back then. Rai clenched his fists as Bulkhead had an understanding expression on his face, knowing what Rai was talking about. The way Britannia, and the cons, just walk all over people like that, not even caring that they're killing people, not just adults but kids, freaking babies. It makes me so mad. Rai stood up as he clenched the steel railing of the catwalk with his fists. It reminds me too much of Charles and that monster of a brother of his. I want nothing more than to rip them to pieces. Is it so wrong I want to make them hurt? No, nothing wrong with that. Bulkhead told him. You're angry and you got every right to be. But you can't lose yourself, if you do. I know, Rai quickly said. I run the risk of my Geass going out of control again. He looked away with a guilty expression, his anger seemingly vanishing. I'm a walking disaster, aren't I? Something you and I got in common. Bulkhead said, getting Ray's attention. Yeah, I got no Geass powers or anything like that, but look at me. He gestured to his large body. Sure, I'm good for smacking the scrap out of the cons, but I don't exactly have a gentle touch. I could hurt someone if I'm not careful. I even let my temper get to me sometimes, and when that happens, I'm a runaway freight train. So, believe me, I get it. Rai could tell that he meant it. True, Bulkhead's issue was far simpler than his, but it did make Rai feel a little better that he wasn't alone. It's not just that, though. It's Nonette. That Knight of Nine lady who used to work for your family. Bulkhead answered. Yeah, Rai couldn't find the words right way. We were close, I considered her part of my family, and I had more than a few happy memories with her. Now I can tell she hasn't changed that much, but she's still with Britannia. I want her with us. I know it's selfish, but I want her back. Does that sound petty at all? Not at all, you want your friend back. Bulkhead answered. I want my friends back, too. Since Cybertron went dark, wreckers were scattered. I don't even know if they're still kicking. For all we know, Jackie and I might be the only ones left, not including you and the BKs who work with us. You think it's possible she might switch over and join us? Rai asked. I mean, we got Suzaku and Dreadwing on our side now, so. I don't know. Bulkhead replied. I don't know her. But you do. So, don't ask me, as yourself, if you think that Nonette will switch over. Rai took the moment to think as he recalled his memories of Nonette. Not just those when she served as his knight, but his most recent ones of her. She was a soldier, a fighter, but one who had a strong moral code and refused to compromise it. She even refused to attack the people during the massacre at the SAS, though he did regret threatening her the way he did back then, and wished he brought her to the Ark along with Suzaku and Dreadwing then and there. But, he had a feeling that she was still around nearby, and if she really was the same as she was back then he knew she would make the right choice. I think she will, Rai said with a small smile. Well, there ya go. Bulkhead nodded. And when she does, I'd like to meet her. Rai gave his partner, fellow wrecker, and friend a genuine and grateful smile. Thanks, Bulkhead. At the same time, Ogi had sat down in the room that he and Chigusa occupied, with the latter embracing him from behind as he seemed to still be struggling with all that's been happening these past few hours. I shouldn't really be all that surprised, Ogi muttered. I mean, I heard what Megatron is like, hell, I've even seen what he could do, but something like that. Ogi's fists clenched as hate filled his eyes. Walking all over the hopes of our people, like they don't even matter. I am so sorry, Kaname. Chigusa tried to provide what support and comfort she could. It's so horrible. A look of guilt fell over her face. What's even more horrible, if I didn't lose my memory, I might have gone alone with something like that. All Ogi's hate vanished as he turned around to face Chigusa directly, grabbing her by the shoulders and looking her in the eyes. Chigusa, whoever you might have been back then, it's not the person you are now. You're good, kind, and caring woman. One that I'm glad I got to know. But, what if who I am now doesn't really exist? Chigusa began to voice her fears. What if my memory returns and I turn back into. Her body began to shake at the mere thought of that. I don't want to be that person anymore. I trust you, Kaname. I trust that you to do what you think is right, even when it comes to me, but I don't. Then don't be that person. Ogi told her as a small smile formed on his face. Even if your memory does come back, I doubt it would change anything. Chigusa looked at him in surprise as he continued to smile. You know what you did in the past was wrong and you want to change. I know I've already said this, but the fact that you want to change shows how much you already have. So even if you do remember who you were, you got friends here who can help you, that includes me. I mean, Suzaku Kururugi of all people is now on our side, and even have a former Decepticon. If they can change, I know you can too. Chigusa couldn't contain her tears as she wrapped her arms around Ogi to bury her face into his chest. His smile never wavered as he returned the gesture. As he did, he couldn't help but recount his past experiences. Before even meeting Zero and the Autobots, he could never have imagined that he'd grow to care for a Britannian pureblood like this. But given all that he's experienced up till this point, this shouldn't be that big of a shock. A part of him wished this moment could honestly last forever. However, all Autobots and Black Knights, report to the bridge immediately. Optimus announced, his voice reaching every section of the Ark, including Ogi's room. With a bit of reluctance, Ogi stood up and pulled away from Chigusa. I have to go. Go ahead, I understand. Chigusa smiled. Just promise me something. What is it? Chigusa gave a quick kiss on his lips, much to his surprise as his cheeks turned red before she pulled away with a smile. Come back. Oji's blush faded as he returned the smile. I will. Zero stood up on the catwalk that overlooked the bridge of the Ark, with Optimus Prime right by his side, and even Fix-It was right next to Zero. Bumblebee, Ironhide, Bulkhead, Wheeljack, RC, Cliffjumper, Ratchet, and even Dreadwing stood across the floor, and all the Black Knights they've recruited gathered below, including Colin, Ogi, Toto, Rai, Shirley, Kagaya, Diathard, Rakshata, Tamaki, Katase, Kagaya, the rest of Kyoto, the Four Holy Swords, and so many others that it looked like over 100 people were gathered together. Even Suzaku Kururugi was present as he stood closest to Dreadwing. Shirley and Kagaya stuck close to him as well. We have less than 6 hours before the 24-hour deadline is reached. Zero began as a massive radar map of the Tokyo settlement had appeared on the main screen window behind him, Optimus, and Fix-It. The settlement has appeared to have been thoroughly evacuated of all civilian personnel. However, the Britannian military appears to have assembled with virtually every resource they currently have. It would seem that all their military forces within the country are ready for battle. So much for surrendering quietly. Cliffjumper commented. Suzaku said nothing but grimaced as he had a good idea what was about to happen next, but it was too late for regrets. He had made his bed, now it was time to lie in it. A little more than an hour ago, we were able to use the ground bridge to assist Wheeljack and Dreadwing in planting bombs at several key points within the section blocks composing the outer perimeter of the settlement. Optimus explained. These blocks were originally intended to counter against earthquakes, but once the bombs detonate, the entire perimeter around the settlement will crumble. In addition to those bombs, Ratchet, Rakshata, and myself have designed a special electromagnetic pulse device which has also been placed within the section blocks. Fix-It revealed as Rakshata gave her titular grin in confirmation. Once this device detonates, it will shut down all communication within the Britannian military, though nightmares will still be operational. With the outer perimeter destroyed, and their communications severed, the entire military will be thrown into a state of chaos, and that is when we attack. Zero continued. Optimus and I have already made contact with the leaders of all the insurrections that erupted since our announcement 18 hours ago, and they've agreed to this plan as well. Ironhide, Konami Ogi, and Suzaku Kururugi will lead a frontal assault of Black Knight forces and the insurgent groups directly into the settlement. Optimus directed. They will be attacking the bulk of the Britannian military before they get a chance to regroup and counterattack. At the same time, Wheeljack, with his vessel, the Jackhammer, alongside Dreadwing will clear the skies of all aircraft. We've also isolated 2 important targets that must be neutralized simultaneously. Zero explained as the main screen behind him shifted to reveal images of a power station and what appeared to be a military depot. Colin Kazuki, RC, and Cliffjumper will attack the settlement's main power station. Even with the EMP attack, so long as that station remains active, we run the risk of the Britannians re-establishing communications. That station must be destroyed. Understood. RC nodded as she, Cliffjumper, and Colin made eye contact. Bulkhead and Rai will lead a strike force at the settlement's military depot. Optimus instructed. This will prevent the enemy from assembling reinforcements. Show them all why you're called the Wreckers. Zero stated. No problem. Rai smirked slightly, along with Bulkhead. Hell yeah, let's do this. Tamaki exclaimed as it was his group that would be helping Bulkhead and Rai in that attack. Finally, our main target, the settlement's royal palace. Optimus gave final instructions as an image of the palace was brought to the main screen. This team will consist of myself, Zero, Bumblebee, Toto, and the Four Holy Swords. The Swords and I will attack from the north side, while Zero, Bumblebee, and Toto attack from the south side. We won't lie to any of you, this may well be the most dangerous battle we've ever waged. Zero began. All 7 knights of the round are here in the settlement, led by both Princess Cornelia and Prince Schneisel. There's also a strong possibility the Decepticons will be staging an attack of their own, so watch all your backs. We can and will be victorious. We may have all started out as separate individuals, fighting for our own goals and agendas, but here and now, whether you're Japanese, Britannian, or some other nationality, Autobot or human, we all stand together now, as one. Today we will free the United States of Japan, and tomorrow, we will begin our crusade to liberate the Earth." With that declaration, all the Black Knights and even a few Autobots all cheered and hollered in celebration. Suzaku, Toto, Dreadwing, Ratchet, RC, and Ironhide were among those that choose to remain calm as everyone chanted the names, Zero, and Optimus Prime. Within the Ark's Nightmare Bay, Rakshata and her team, along with Fix-It, were making final adjustments to all the nightmares present, including the Gawain, Gurren, all the Gekas, and even the recently acquired Lancelot. Rakshata herself stood casually in front of the White Nightmare as she observed its outer appearance. "I'll give the Earl of Pudding credit, this is likely his greatest creation," Rakshata commented. "Of course, I'm going to have to make a few adjustments. In such a short time, we were able to reverse engineer its shielding system and supply it to the Gawain." Fix-It said, "If we had more time, we'd install similar features to all our nightmares, perhaps even flight capabilities." "Yes, but we are short on time," Rakshata replied, "though I did notice you made a slight cosmetic change to its appearance. Considering Suzaku Kururugi is no longer affiliated with the Decepticons, I felt it was right." Fix-It glitched as Rakshata noticed the emblem of the Decepticons was no longer present on the Lancelot's shoulder, but rather the metallic emblem of the Autobot Black Knight Alliance. Lelouch's room. The former prince himself sat in his quarters with Nunnally, CC, and even Sayoko as he just got off a call from Optimus. "Everything's set. Only 4 hours left," Lelouch told them. "Honestly though, the waiting seems like the worst part." "Lelouch, are you sure about this?" Nunnally asked. "I trust you and Optimus, but is all this fighting really the right move?" "It might be our only move," Lelouch commented. "The Decepticons have proven that they have no intention of making peace with us, as are most Britannians. We still gave them the option to surrender, and they can still choose to take it." "And if they don't?" CC asked rhetorically, despite that even she knew that was probably going to happen. "Then we fight," Lelouch stated firmly. Nunnally gave a sad sigh. "I hate fighting but, if it's the only way," she gave a smile. "Then I trust you, big brother." "Thank you, Nunnally." Lelouch was really glad he had his sister with him now. His door opened and the group looked to see none other than Shirley enter. "Excuse me," Shirley spoke up. "Sorry to just walk in without saying anything." "It's fine, do you need something, Shirley?" Lelouch asked. "Yeah, Lulu, can I talk to you alone? Just for a little bit. Please?" she asked. Though a bit surprised, Lelouch saw nothing wrong with it. "Can you give us a moment?" he asked Nunnally, Sayoko, and CC. "Of course." Sayoko nodded as she pushed Nunnally's wheelchair outside with CC right behind them, leaving the two alone as the door closed. "Lulu, you see," Shirley tried to find the right words to say, but it seemed Lelouch himself had something to ask her. "Shirley, I'm sorry if this sounds rude or anything, but are you sure you want to stay here?" Lelouch asked, causing her to look in surprise. "Your mother must really be worried about you. If need be, we could. I already texted her, saying that I was safe, and I was with you," Shirley quickly said, which isn't technically a lie. "And I can just use a ground bridge to go to her, she's already been evacuated so she should be safe now." "That's good to hear," Lelouch said. "I'm sorry if I..." "No, I get it. You were concerned about me and that is very sweet of you," Shirley replied. "To be honest, if someone told me that I would call you sweet back in our freshman year, I'd say they were crazy." Lelouch chuckled at her joke. "Yeah, I was different back then. But I kinda always liked that about you," Shirley said, getting his attention. "I'm sorry if this sounds forward, but I really need to tell you something." She tried to hide her blush as her arms began to fidget slightly. "Lulu, I've kinda always had a crush on me," Lelouch finished for her, causing her to look at him with circular eyes. "To be honest, I kind of already figured that some time ago, and I probably should have said something sooner." "Lelouch?" Shirley questioned, still not over her surprise. "Shirley, listen," he began. "I'm really flattered you like me that way. You're a kind and caring person, one of the best people I've met in my life. I'd even say you're one of my best friends. But that's about all I see you as." The brunette had something of a saddened expression, as did Lelouch. He felt a bit bad to reject her feelings like this, but he had to get it out in the open. Don't take it the wrong way. Lelouch continued. I care about you a lot and I'm appreciative of all the support you've given me, whether it's as Black Knights or just in school. But, I just don't share those kinds of feelings that you have for me. It's no one's fault and you didn't do anything wrong, I just don't feel the same way. I'm sorry. It's alright. He looked toward her and was completely stunned to see a smile on her face, though he could still see the sad expression in her eyes. To be honest, there was a small part of me that knew that was the case. Now I know for certain and it's all out in the open. Even if it hurts a bit. And I'm sorry for that. Lelouch said sincerely. I never wanted to hurt you or try to lead you on. I know you wouldn't. Shirley began. Back when we first met in our freshman year, and I saw you during that thing with the elderly couple in their car, I wanted to get to know you, see what goes on in your head, and I got my wish. Shirley smiled as she looked at him. I got to see what kind of person you are, and it's someone that I think is truly amazing. You're far from perfect, but you're willing to do so much to help people. You want to change this world into a place where everyone can be happy and smile together, regardless of their differences. Despite every horrible thing that's happened to you, and all the bad guys that are trying to stop you, you refuse to give up. I am so glad I got to know you, whether you call yourself Lelouch Lamperouge, Lelouch v Britannia, or even Zero, I'm happy that I get to be a part of your world. My world is a very dangerous place, Lelouch stuttered, as he didn't appear to be quite over what she just told him. I know and I don't care, I still want to be part of it, even if it's just as a friend. Shirley said as she put a hand on his shoulder. Lelouch, no matter what happens, I'll always be by your side. Even if by some chance that the whole world should somehow turn against you, I won't. I won't ever abandon you, not now, not ever. Lelouch couldn't stop his own smile from forming, or even tears from welling up in his eyes which he tried to wipe out. He was truly grateful to have such a good friend in Shirley, even if he didn't share her romantic feelings, and he regretted ever ignoring her, pushing her away, or even unintentionally causing her pain. And when you finally do find someone, Shirley continued, someone who can make you happy, someone that you can truly love, you make sure she's the happiest girl in the world. Alright, Lulu. I will. Lelouch replied. And I'm sure you'll find someone as well. You deserve nothing but the best, Shirley. They quickly wrapped their arms around each other in the form of a hug. And, there is one other thing you could do for me. What is it? Shirley asked. Please stay with Nunnally, while everyone else is out there. Lelouch requested as they pulled away. I trust Cece and Sayoko, I'm certain even Kagaya will be happy to stay with her as well, It's okay, you don't have to explain it to me. Shirley assured. I promise, I'll stay with your sister. You just promise to come back to her, and the rest of us. I will. Lelouch vowed. And thank you, Shirley. The Nemesis, the bridge. As Starscream, Thundercracker, Skywarp, and Soundwave continued to work at the various stations on the bridge of the Decepticon warship, Megatron gazed out the window to get a clear view of the planet Earth. Right below him was the captive immortal boy known as VV. It's going to be glorious, Victor. Megatron spoke to his former student turned traitor. You know, you really should be grateful. Despite all the speeches of social Darwinism and Britannia's superiority, you and your brother utterly loathe your empire. Well now, it's all about to come crashing down. Pardon me if I don't break out in applause. VV said sarcastically. You know Charles won't make it easy for you. I'm certain he has plans that not even I might be aware of. That's fine with me, Megatron said with an evil grin. I welcome a challenge. Lord Megatron, Starscream reported. The last of our diagnosis is complete, and the Nemesis is fully operational. In addition, all onboard forces, be they Viacon, Seeker, or even Insecticons, are ready for battle. Knockout and Breakdown both called in. Skywarp reported as well. They're in the settlement, each with a squad of Viacons to at least make it look like we're part of this fight. In addition, Hardshell and his team have also made contact. Thundercracker also made his own report. They are stationed at Ashford Academy and have captured 3 humans whom Soundwave has confirmed to be part of the student council. Only 3? Starscream asked. I had thought there were 4, excluding those not in the Black Knights or Britannian military. Probably evacuated with everyone. Skywarp shrugged, not giving it much thought. It does not matter, they will suffice. Megatron stated. Tell Hardshell that no harm is to come to those children, yet. Keep them alive. Is that really necessary? VV asked. You already have Euphemia and Cornelia as hostages, what do you need some of Lelouch's friends for? I'd prefer to keep all my potential cards close to my chest. Megatron replied. But when our plan succeeds and they have no further use, I could care less what happens. Shockwave has also reported in that Orange is in the settlement and need only wait for command to be unleashed. Thundercracker gave his final report. And Schneisel? Megatron asked. Currently on the Avalon, waiting for the enemy to strike. Starscream replied. The Avalon. The second Prince of Britannia sat on his throne within his flying ship with several officers at their respective stations, as well as General Bartley by his side. Night had fallen over the entire settlement as he saw on the radar screen the massive enemy force that had halted its advance toward the settlement. He looked at his watch to see that they only had 1 hour left. My lord, everything is prepared. Bartley reported. The entire perimeter of the settlement has been secured with long-range assault vehicles and aircraft. Our Sutherland Infinitary is on standby behind them. In addition, the Knights of 12 and 6 are at the helm and in command. The Knights of 9 and 4 are at the military depot with a garrison of some of our finest troops. The Knights of 10 and 3, as well as the Valkyrie Squadron, are all guarding the settlement's power station. Finally, the Knight of 1 himself, as well as Sir Guilford and Sir Darlton are at the palace with Sir Waldstein's own hand-picked soldiers at their disposal. Thank you, General Bartley. Schneisel nodded in acknowledgement. So, this is it. Schneisel thought to himself. Whether we win or lose this battle is irrelevant. In the end, the world will change forever. You do realize that we're essentially committing treason by doing this, right? Lloyd asked casually as Cecile stepped out, wearing a yellow and black pilot suit. I don't care. I'm going to help Suzaku. Cecile stated firmly. This is wrong, and I don't know if I can tolerate this anymore. Morality is something that one usually abandons when they try to join the Britannian military. Lloyd said. At least that's how you non-sociopaths feel, right? Cecile rolled her eyes, knowing Lloyd's antics would never truly change. You don't have to come with me, you know. You could stay here, if you want. And be apart from my precious Lancelot. Lloyd asked, with Rockshatta ready to tear it apart and undo all my hard work. I don't think so. So, I guess that means we're both traitors to Britannia. But hopefully those Autobots will be less stingy with Cybertronian goodies than the Decepticons were. This was it. This was the last few minutes before the 24-hour deadline was up. All the Black Knight forces, as well as their supporters from the insurrections, have complete surrounded the settlement and need only wait for their leader's word to attack. The only Autobot who appeared to be present is Ironhide, who appeared to be at the front lines, along with Suzaku inside the Lancelot, and Ogi in his own Barai. Countless nightmares, armored vehicles, and even armed infinitary forces. There were even sets of modified Reiko cannons mixed in with all that. Within the air, the Gawain hovered just above the settlement, being piloted by Lelouch himself with CC in the co-pilot seat below him. Next to the large black nightmare was the Jackhammer, piloted by Wheeljack with Dreadwing in the passenger seat. 0 to Optimus. Lelouch made contact with his fellow commander. All forces are on standby and need only wait for the word. Understood. Optimus contacted back from the Ark. The teams we have assigned are all gathered at the ground bridge and are ready to be deployed to their respective targets the minute the fighting begins. All right. See you at the palace. Lelouch signed off as he looked at the site of the heavily guarded settlement that laid in front of him before looking at the clock on his console. 10 more minutes. Suddenly, Lelouch's cell phone began to vibrate. He took it out and looked at the recognizable caller ID. Suzaku. He nonetheless answered it. Yes. Lelouch, Suzaku began. It's almost time. I know. Lelouch answered. Before all this starts, can I ask you something? Suzaku asked. What is it? Is there anyone you could ever hate so much that you actually want to kill them? Suzaku asked. I can think of at least 5 off the top of my head. Lelouch replied. And I can assume that the one at the top spot is also the one you want to kill, right? The same one who took Yuffie and caused all of this. I know now how most of the things he told me were lies, ways just to get inside my head. Suzaku began. But there's one thing he said that still sticks to me, how violence is often necessary. I used to hate that sort of belief, but now that's all I can think of, as I want nothing more than to drive my nightmare's blade through his black spark. He used Yuffie's face to start a massacre. He killed so many innocent people. And I actually helped him along that path. And you have every right to hate him, just as much as I do, now. Lelouch told his friend before essentially repeating the same words Optimus told him. But you can't let that hate consume you. If you do, destruction is the only thing that you will find. Even when you were with the military, there were plenty of people who saw you as a hero, both Britannians and Japanese, and they need a hero now more than ever. So be a symbol for righteous justice. He heard a small chuckle on the other line. You know, back when we were kids, I never thought I'd actually hear you say something like that. Lelouch smirked himself. Yeah, Optimus really rubbed off on me. You know, he's like a father to me. Colin told me the same thing. Suzaku replied. And I'm glad to hear that. He's definitely a better alternative than your biological father. Lelouch gave a slight chuckle before he heard a small sob on the other line. Lelouch, I'm sorry. For what? For a lot of things, Suzaku began as Lelouch could hear him sob a bit, causing him to look in sympathy as he listened to his friend. I'm sorry for attacking you so many times. I'm sorry I joined the Decepticons. I'm sorry if I ever felt that you couldn't trust me. I'm sorry I yelled and hit you before. I'm sorry, I'm just sorry for everything. It's all right, we all make mistakes. Lelouch told him. But what's important is that we learn from them, and work to make ourselves better, not just better soldiers but better people. No matter what happens from this point forward, Suzaku, you're still my friend. There was no response at first, but Lelouch had a feeling that a smile had formed on his friend's face. Thank you, Lelouch. I know I probably got a long way to go before I can set things right, but I want you to know that from now on, I'm 100% on your side. I know you are. Lelouch confirmed. I'll see you when this is all over. He hung up. Get a room, why don't you? CC teased as she smirked up in Lelouch's direction, who only smirked back in response before looking at the clock to see that the timer has reached 0. The Gawain's screen zoomed in as he saw the Avalon in the sky, though it was still several miles away from him. It was almost as if Lelouch himself could see into the bridge of the floating ship, where his older half-brother was no doubt sitting. Once he saw the Britannian aircraft, Lelouch projected his voice through the Gawain's speakers so the enemy could hear him. Hear me, Britannia. Your 24-hour time limit is up. I can tell that you have at least evacuated your civilians, but that is not good enough. This will be your only chance. The Britannian government in this country must surrender unconditionally, and vow to leave the United States of Japan now and forever. Do this, and no blood shall be spilt. But if you resist, then you support the oppressive cause of Charles Z. Britannia and Megatron. And if that is the case, we will not hesitate to crush you. I await your reply. He dares. Just who does this coward think he is? Bartley exclaimed. Does he truly believe this army of rabble and those metallic abominations can actually defeat us? We are the Holy Empire of Britannia. Our empire has stood for centuries. We will not let it fall to the ground. Your Highness, the Avalon has a lock on 0. One officer reported to Schneisel. What are your orders? Schneisel looked to the Avalon's main screen and saw that his ship had indeed locked onto the Gawain. Well, Lelouch, let's make our last game together one to remember. He thought to himself before solidifying his resolve. Open fire. A series of missiles shot from the Avalon's sides and flew across the sky, straight towards the hovering Black Nightmare before appearing to make contact and explode, seemingly engulfing the Gawain in an inferno. Direct hit. An officer exclaimed. The Gawain is destroyed. Wait. Schneisel halted any celebrations as the Avalon's screen zoomed in toward the smoke that began to clear, which revealed, much to the shock of everyone, the Gawain had remained undamaged, evident by the familiar shield pattern that appeared in front of it. What? Bartley exclaimed in disbelief. But, that's the Blaze Luminous shield system. The Gawain was never outfitted with that device, and the Black Knights could not have built it themselves. They may have the Lancelot, but there is no way they could have replicated it in such a short time. An intrigued smile fell on Schneisel's face. Pulling out all the stops, are we? So be it, Lelouch said with reluctant acceptance. I gave you your chance. He made contact with the jackhammer that remained next to him. Wheeljack, Dreadwing, let's kick this off, Wrecker style. Wheeljack pulled out his own personal trigger as Dreadwing did the same with his own trigger. Who would have thought I'd be doing this with a con? The wrecker voiced the irony aloud. There's a first for everything, it would seem. The former seeker replied. On 3. Wheeljack only smirked. 1, 2, Dreadwing put his finger on his trigger. 3, they both said as they simultaneously pressed their respective triggers. Multiple explosions erupted from the ground around the entire perimeter of the Tokyo settlement as the various bombs designed and planted by Wheeljack and Dreadwing all exploded, destroying the support of all the section blocks before the entire perimeter began to collapse. What? Bartley exclaimed as even Schneisel was caught off guard. With the collapse of the section blocks, the ground became unstable as the entire area seemed to have been struck with a sudden level 10 earthquake. Bridges collapsed and broke apart, taking all the hundreds of armored tanks and vehicles down before entire buildings collapsed and toppled over with them, falling down and crushing any aircraft that couldn't pull out of the way in time. CC looked up to see the reluctant look on Lelouch's face. You know, a part of me was somehow expecting you to laugh at this. Maybe in a different time, I probably would have. Lelouch replied as he watched the destruction unfold before him. But, somewhere down the line from when I started this, destruction has lost its appeal to me. I understand however that sometimes destruction is necessary. And now, there is only one path that lies ahead for us, straight ahead. Megatron gave an amused chuckle as he, Starscream, VV, Soundwave, Thundercracker, and Skywarp watched the destruction of the Tokyo settlement's outer perimeter unfold before them. Even the Starscream seemed amused. He certainly has a flair for the dramatics, doesn't he? Starscream mused with a chuckle. Now all eyes are set on Area 11, the whole world has directed its attention to this rebellion, completely ignorant of the true main event. Indeed. Megatron smiled evilly as he saw the holographic image of the Earth project in front of him. He placed his hand directly under the hologram, as if saying that he held the Earth itself in the palm of his hand. We launch a full-scale assault on Pendragon immediately. And wipe the traitorous Charles Z. Britannia and his pathetic empire off the face of the planet. He declared before crushing the hologram in his hand. Fall of Britannia. The entire perimeter of the Tokyo settlement had completely crumbled, and all power had been shorted out throughout the entire city as well, even areas that haven't been destroyed yet. On board the Avalon, Bartley and all the Britannian officers looked in clear shock, even Schneisel in his command chair had been caught by surprise. The settlement has been breached, Bartley stuttered. How could they have? Prince Schneisel, General Bartley, we've lost contact with all military units. One officer reported. What? Impossible, Bartley exclaimed. We can't reach anybody. Communications are down. Not only did they breach the perimeter, allowing their forces to invade the settlement, they even found a way to cut off all military communications simultaneously, making it all that more difficult for us to coordinate. An impressed smile fell on Schneisel's face. Well played, Lelouch. Pull the Avalon back, Schneisel ordered. But, my lord, Bartley attempted to protest. We can't get in contact with any of our units, so, until we can re-establish communication, we should pull the Avalon back for safety. If we're shot down, our forces will be directionless. Schneisel explained. Even with the Knights of the Round on station, without tight coordination, the enemy still has the advantage. We have no choice but to fall back and find a way to restore communications. Understood. One officer said as even Bartley seemed to reluctantly accept. We're pulling the Avalon back. Lelouch and CC saw from the screen of the Gawain that the Avalon was moving back. Good choice, Schneisel, Lelouch commented. You want us to go after him? Wheeljack got in contact as the jackhammer hovered next to the floating Gawain. Negative, Lelouch replied. Communications might be down, but the skies are still infested with enemy units. Take them down now before they get organized. Understood, Dreadwing acknowledged. Lelouch and CC both watched as Dreadwing leapt down from the jackhammer's open drawbridge on the bottom before he transformed into his jet mode and shot into the sky with the jackhammer right behind him to begin clearing the skies. With those two, the Britannians' air force won't stand a chance. Lelouch commented with a slight smirk. It's about time Britannia meets its match. Don't get overconfident, CC advised him. That's always been a problem for you, Lelouch. You might be a good strategist, but when you get cocky, you let your guard down. I know, I've learned that the hard way. Lelouch replied. But now is the time to move and bring Britannia and the Decepticons to their knees. He got in contact with the rest of his forces and relayed instructions. All units move in now. Ironhide, Suzaku, Ogi, lead the bulk of our forces straight through the settlement. Demolish any Britannian or Decepticon forces you see. Already on it. Ironhide reported. Got it. Ogi replied. I understand. Suzaku also relayed as the sounds of explosions and gunfire could already be heard from down below as Lelouch made contact with the Ark. Optimus, Ratchet, the battle has begun. Send our teams to their respective targets. CC and I already making a beeline to Palace. Very well, we'll see you there. Optimus replied. All teams are being deployed as we speak. Ratchet informed. With nothing else needing to be said, Lelouch piloted the Gawain as it shot through the air at incredible speeds. Its destination, the royal palace of the Tokyo settlement. What the hell was all that? Rivals exclaimed as he, Millie, and Nina, along with their cat, Arthur, were being held in the student council building, specifically in the darkened ballroom. Right outside, were a group of Insecticons led by Hardshell, standing guard. Was that an earthquake? He exclaimed, as a result of the massive tremor the whole settlement felt. I don't know. Millie muttered as Nina clung to her like a lifeline, Arthur rubbing his side along the frightened girl to try and comfort her as she shook like a leaf. Millie couldn't help but draw comparisons to when she, Shirley, Nina, and Rai were taken hostage by the JLF in the hotel jacking, only this time, the people holding them hostage were literal monsters. Why is this happening? Nina shivered, her eyes shaking with terror. Princess Euphemia is gone, monsters everywhere, why do we have to endure all this? Rivals looked with sympathy at the bespectacled girl while Millie stroked her back to provide what comfort she could. We'll find a way out of this, Nina. I promise. However, despite that comfort, Millie did her best to hide her own terror that was building deep inside her. Lelouch, please. Outside the building, Hardshell gave a chuckle. Did you feel that, my brothers? He asked the two Insecticons that accompanied him. That is the sound of Britannia crumbling, and the rise of our glorious empire. All Reiko cannons, open fire. Ogi shouted as a line of the massive guns fired their own high-velocity shells, which broke apart into dozens of smaller projectiles that tore through an entire line of Britannian infantry units, including tanks and Sutherlands. Out of the smoke, Ogi led the charge of multiple Barai Nightmares that took advantage of the confusion to shoot down many more Britannian Nightmares, their magnesium rounds easily melting and destroying the enemy units with little issue. Ironhide's vehicle mode also shot forward, both his side doors opened as his energon cannons popped out and he shot balls of explosive energy onto a line of Nightmares. From an aerial perspective, a long line of explosions could be seen as Ironhide cut through the ruined landscape of the destroyed perimeter like a hot knife through butter. The veteran Autobot then transformed and used the momentum he gained to deliver a powerful punch to obliterate one Sutherland as he appeared to be surrounded on all sides by 7 Sutherlands. However, Ironhide was more than prepared as he shot his arms out to blast his cannons and completely eradicate 2 Sutherlands before ducking under their fire to deliver an uppercut to the one in front of him to send it flying into the air before grabbing its foot and slamming it down onto the one next to him to crush it, before throwing it at another one to destroy both. He fired his cannons again to obliterate the remaining 2. But suddenly, 5 more Sutherlands rolled onto the scene to shoot him down. Vile machine. Destroy it. The lead soldier ordered as the Nightmares attempted to open fire on Ironhide, but the Lancelot suddenly appeared in front of Ironhide and quickly used its blaze luminous shield to block the gunshots. Kururugi. One soldier exclaimed. Of course, you would side with them, filthy traitor. Once an 11, always an 11. I'm the traitor. Suzaku shouted in offense and anger. You're the ones who would use Princess Euphemia's name to further your own ends. You'd sully your own princess to fulfill your need for bloodshed. Bah, that traitor of a princess had nothing but pity for you filthy creatures. Another soldier dismissed. I'm just glad to finally be rid of her. That really hit Suzaku hard as he shot his Lancelot straight towards the group, the young soldier only seeing red as he drew his Nightmare's MVS blade. How dare you! He easily sliced one Sutherland in half before quickly slicing down another one next to him as the remaining 3 tried to pull back and shoot, only for the Lancelot to draw the Varus and destroy all 3 in a single shot. Suzaku, cool your jets. Ironhide told him firmly as he put a hand on the Lancelot's shoulder. You can't lose control in the middle of a fight like this. One slip-up could mean the difference between life and death. This seemed enough to calm Suzaku slightly. I'm sorry. Ironhide gave a small sigh. I don't blame you for being pissed off right now, but you need to keep a cool head. Don't react with your anger, channel it. Use it, or else it will end up using you. Alright, I understand. Suzaku seemed to get it as he focused back on the battlefield. Come on, stay with me at all times, soldier. Ironhide instructed as he transformed back into his vehicle mode. Don't go off on your own unless ordered to, you got it? Yes, sir. Suzaku nodded as he followed in his Lancelot after Ironhide, the two soldiers driving deeper into the battlefield to help clear out the front lines for their forces to push through. The settlement's power station seemed active as the electric lines all continued to buzz with electricity, yet the squadron of 10 Britannian nightmares guarding the station were unable to get in contact with anyone else outside their area. What's going on? I can't reach Central Command. Could the enemy have done this? I don't know, but we need to. Suddenly a ground bridge portal opened up, and before any of the soldiers could react, the team consisting of RC, Cliffjumper, and Colin all shot out, the two Autobots in their respective vehicle modes, and the young Black Knight in her personal nightmare, the Gurren Mk2. Colin was the first to attack as she used her Nightmare's knife to quickly cut down the Sutherland in front of her before reaching out to grab another one with her Radiant Wave Surger, which she was quick to activate, causing the entire Nightmare to explode. RC shot through the enemy gunfire as she slid directly underneath one Sutherland before transforming and leaping up with her arm blades to slice it in half. She landed on the ground and opened fire with both her energon blasters to turn the nearest enemy Nightmare to flaming rubble before leaping over a third that tried to strike her with its stun batons, landing on its shoulders, crushing its head in between her legs and snapping it off to disable it. Cliffjumper swerved his vehicle mode to trip up two Sutherlands before transforming and shooting his energon blasters at their heads to disable them before turning around as two more attempted to charge him. But he easily blocked and parried their weapon strikes before punching down one Sutherland and delivering a kick to knock the second one down, while easily disabling both with his energon blasters. He gave a cocky grin as he shot behind him to blast off the head of the final Sutherland without even turning around to face it. Looks like we're at the power station. Colin noted. What gave it away? Cliffjumper joked. The fact that it was guarded, or all the power lines surging with electricity. Let's sweep out the rest of the area before we start demolishing it. RC suggested. They probably got more guards here. Got it. Colin nodded. Let's get this party started. Cliffjumper was already enthusiastic as the three moved deeper into the station. At the same time, the military depot, which was filled with multiple armaments of the Britannian military, and guarded by a group of at least 20 Sutherlands, went from being deathly quiet to lively as a ground bridge portal opened up, and the vehicle mode of Bulkhead shot out, followed by Rai in his Gekka pre-production, along with 10 Beret, led by Tamaki in his own Beret. But these Beret were different from the standard ones, they seemed to be more weaponized, evident by the shoulder-mounted missile launchers on the Black Nightmares. Alright wreckers, time to let this place up. Tamaki exclaimed as he and the other Berets shot their missiles out in multiple directions, already turning almost half the area of depot they were currently in, into a blazing inferno as the missiles obliterated all the vehicles and buildings in sight, and even half of the squadron of Sutherlands. Bulkhead's vehicle mode and Ray's Gekka shot forward at the remaining 10 Nightmares as the Sutherlands opened fire, which Rai retaliated with his Gekka's arm cannon, taking down one Sutherland before moving in closer to cut down two more with his Gekka's katana and grabbing a third with his Radiant Wave Surger, causing it to explode less than a second later. The green Autobot transformed as Bulkhead brought down his mace onto one Sutherland to crush it before swinging it on his left to obliterate a second. Bulkhead then reached out to grab the third Sutherland and spun it around like a makeshift weapon to knock down the remaining two before throwing the one in his hands away, sending it crashing into a small armory, which exploded shortly after. Bulkhead, this area is clear. Rai reported as he, Tamaki, and their squad rolled up to him. Alright everyone, it's time to kick some Britannian tailpipe. Who's with me? Bulkhead shouted as he raised his fist, resulting in all the Black Knights cheering as they moved deeper into the depot to demolish everything in sight. On the south side of the settlement's palace, Bumblebee had already arrived along with Toto in his own custom Geass. They had expected the palace to be heavily guarded, and so it was, not just by multiple Gloasters, but even turrets that were stationed along the building itself. Bumblebee and Toto didn't even have the chance to engage as the enemy fire was so intense. They had to take cover behind some debris, and even that wouldn't last long. "We're pinned down. We can't get closer," Toto stated. "Be a lot easier to move in if we could get rid of those damn turrets." B cursed as he tried to return fire with his energon blaster but was forced behind cover again. "Allow me to grant you your wish." A familiar voice sounded through the air as a series of massive red lasers shot down from the sky to carve through the lower area of the wall of the palace, causing the entire side to crumble and take down nearly all the turrets. The culprit was revealed to be none other than the Gawain and its hadron cannons. "It's zero," one Gloster pilot exclaimed as he and his units were about to open fire, but his entire nightmare was destroyed by a series of energon shots as Bumblebee and Toto charged forward at the Britannian soldiers. Toto shot through a line of 7 Gloasters, faster than any of them could anticipate, using his Geass sword to cut through all of them with ease. Meanwhile, Bumblebee shot and destroyed 2 Gloasters as 3 more shot at him with their guns, but Bumblebee had leapt to deliver a kick and knock the central one down before sweeping his legs to knock down the other 2, which he finished off with blasts to all 3 of their heads and disable them. The remaining 6 Gloasters attempted to shoot the Gawain as it landed, but its own blaze-luminous shield protected it from the gunfire. Once Louch had a target lock, he quickly raised the Gawain's arms to shoot 6 Harkins from its fingertips and decapitate all 6 Gloasters at once. "Flashy as ever, Louch," Toto commented as he and Bumblebee regrouped. "I'll take that as a compliment." Louch smirked before getting serious. "What's the situation?" "We got no idea what's in there, but I'm willing to bet it's not going to be easy." Bumblebee answered as they looked toward the south side of the palace that was already in ruins. "Let's move," Louch ordered as Bumblebee transformed and drove alongside the Gawain and custom Geass deeper into the heart of enemy territory. At the same time, the north end of the palace was a war zone as 20 Gloasters shot at the charging Optimus Prime in his vehicle mode, with the 4 holy swords in their respective Geass right behind him. Once they got close enough to the enemy forces, they ended up splitting off. Chiba and Urabe went on the left flank, Asahina and Senba took the right flank, and Optimus shot down the middle. On the left flank, Chiba cut down 1 Gloster before swerving around the second to shoot it from behind with her Geass armed cannon as Urabe shot head first into a group of 3 Gloasters. He quickly got in the middle and spun his Geass sword around almost like a top to decapitate all 3 in a single motion. Meanwhile, on the right flank, Asahina kept Senba covered as he shot down 1 Gloster, allowing Senba to move in and cut down 2 more. The remaining 12 Gloasters got together to block the path of the charging Autobot leader in his vehicle mode. "All units concentrate your fire on the Autobot. He shall not pass," the head unit ordered as all 12 opened fire. However, Optimus had already kicked into maximum overdrive as he shot forward to ram and smash the central 3 Gloasters at once before transforming and opening fire with his ion blasters on his right to take down 4 more in little effort. As the remaining 5 attempted to shoot him, Optimus ran and drew his axe to swing and cut down 2 of them in one slice before jamming the back end of his axe's staff to knock down a third, which he disabled by stomping on its head. Optimus pulled back his free hand to punch down 1 more Gloster, before grabbing the last one by the head and lifting it in the air before crushing said head, disabling the Nightmare, and dropping it. The Holy Swords couldn't help but look in awe at the Autobot leader. "Damn, he's a real beast," Urabe smirked. "I'd hate to say it, but he'd definitely give Colonel Toto a run for his money." Senba commented. "Sure glad he's on our side," Asahina commented. Optimus. Chiba was the first to roll up to him. "We're detecting multiple enemy signals in there," she told him, referring to the palace. "I don't have confirmation, but more than likely, the Knights of the Round are there." "That is a possibility," Optimus acknowledged. "We got your back, though," Urabe said as the remaining Holy Swords joined him. "No way any Knights or Khans are gonna stop us." "I thank you all," Optimus nodded. "Be on guard." With that, they proceed closer toward the palace. "Ratchet, all units have engaged with enemy," Fixit reported as he and the Autobot medic were on the bridge of the Ark, monitoring the battle from their respective consoles. The wreckers are demolishing the depot. Colin, RC, and Cliffjumper are clearing out the power station. Suzaku, Ironhide, and Ogi have already demolished 20% of the military force within the settlement and are leading our forces with perceptiveness, receptiveness, effectiveness. Excellent. Ratchet replied. What about the teams at the palace, or our aerial force? Wheeljack and Dreadwing have already neutralized more than 63% of the Britannian Air Force. Fix-It informed. Optimus and the Holy Swords are proceeding to the north side of the palace, as are Zero, Bumblebee, and Toto. Good. Keep monitoring for any Decepticon activity. Ratchet instructed. We have to assume they'll attack at any moment as well. As the two Autobots continued to monitor the battle, the group consisting of Nunnally, Shirley, Kagaya, Sayoko, and Chigusa sat in the living area of the bridge as they continued to watch and listen in suspense as well. Nunnally wouldn't say it, but she was greatly worried, not just for Lelouch, Suzaku, or any of her other friends in the Black Knights and the Autobots. She was greatly worried for any people that might get caught up in this, but more than anything, she was especially worried for Euphemia, who they have yet to locate, as well as Cornelia and Schneisel, who were supposed to be in command of the Britannian military forces. Though they reported seeing the Avalon, Schneisel's ship, they had yet to hear anything in regard to Cornelia, and that worried her greatly. Sensing her worry, Sayoko put both her hands on Nunnally's shoulders as Kagaya also reached out to hold her left hand, and even Shirley did the same for Nunnally's right hand, all three of them giving her assuring smiles, despite being unable to see them. This was enough to comfort her as she smiled and silently put her faith in her brother and friends, trusting that they knew what they were doing. In the skies above the settlement, the jackhammer soared through the air as it opened fire with energon blasts to destroy every single Britannian helicopter and fighter jet that was in front of it. Wheeljack's personal craft was far faster than any human-made aircraft as it easily maneuvered past any kind of gunfire or missiles that were shot at it. A trio of fighter jets tried to ambush him from behind, but Wheeljack pulled back on his ship's controls, causing the jackhammer to curve and flip upward before coming down behind the jets and opening fire to blast them down. Ho-oh-ah! Wheeljack hollered in triumph. At the same time, Dreadwing fired his own weaponry in his jet mode to shoot down two helicopters in front of him as a squad of 4 Britannian fighter jets gave him chase from behind and tried to shoot him down. But Dreadwing transformed and let himself fly backwards to grab and land on the nearest fighter jet, where he drew his sword to cut it down before jumping, right as it exploded, and transforming back into his jet mode behind the remaining 3 and opening fire. He easily took down one, but the other 2 split off to avoid it. However, as the 2 regrouped and turned around to try and engage him, Dreadwing shot at an even greater speed past them, right in between the 2 fighter jets. However, it appeared nothing happened, save for 2 of Dreadwing's bombs appearing on their hulls, which exploded to engulf both of them in a blazing inferno. Most of the aerial forces have been obliterated, Dreadwing stated as he flew in his jet mode alongside the jackhammer. That seemed a little too easy. Wheeljack commented, sounding uncharacteristically serious. I mean, Britannia ain't at the same level as the cons, but it feels like we're being set up for something. Yes, look out! Dreadwing exclaimed as he and the jackhammer swerved to the left and right side respectively to avoid a massive purple laser that would have obliterated both of them. Wheeljack struggled to straighten out his jackhammer's flight path as that laser did graze him a little. What the scrap was that? He exclaimed as Dreadwing transformed and perched himself on the jackhammer's roof. It came from below. Dreadwing narrowed his optics to the source of the laser, which came from a large hole all the way down in the ruins of the settlement's perimeter. Out from the hole shot something very large, and very fast, which came to a stop in front of the jackhammer. All hail Britannia! A familiar voice exclaimed as the object in question revealed itself. It appeared almost as big as the jackhammer itself. It appeared to be like an orange sphere with 5 large green spikes along its side, 2 on its upper sides, 2 on its lower sides, and 1 at the very bottom. There also appeared to be a human, or rather, a cyborg, hooked into it as his face was shown from the open cockpit. Are you Autobots? Or Black Knights? The cyborg questioned, sounding in a mixture of enthusiasm and insanity. If you are, then it is such sweet fortune for me. Who the heck is this guy? Wheeljack questioned. I know that voice. Dreadwing's optics widened in shock once he got a good look at him. Jeremiah Gottwald. He was a Britannian pureblood. But, he should have died at Narita. Oh, you mean that orange guy Bulkhead told me about? Wheeljack asked. The use of the O word caused Jeremiah to gasp and shake before he clasped his hands together. I beseech you. I'm begging you, please die. Die at the hands of the Siegfried. The green spikes along the sides of the machine called the Siegfried shot out slightly before they all curved and pointed toward each other, generating a surge of purple electricity before the bolts met in the center and began to converge together, preparing for an attack. Scrap. Clear out. Wheeljack exclaimed as he pulled the jackhammer away, while Dreadwing transformed again and flew away. No escape. Jeremiah shouted as another massive purple energy beam shot from the Siegfried, which the jackhammer and Dreadwing were barely able to avoid. A long line of explosions was shot to halt the path of Ironhide, the Lancelot, and a group of Beret as they faced a small army of Sutherlands blocked their path, being led by two certain nightmares. I am sorry, but this is the end of the line. Anya said robotically from within the hovering Mordred with the Florence right by her side. Somehow, I knew he'd run into these guys. Ironhide commented as he readied himself for battle, though Suzaku seemed hesitant as he knew who these people were. Anya, Monica, Suzaku thought with a conflicted look on his face, one that was shared by Monica as well, who seemed more than a little unsure of where she stood right now. Well, looky what we have here, folks. Luciano Bradley smirked sadistically within his Percival, which stood alongside the Tristian, piloted by Gino, and four pinkish unfamiliar nightmares, which appeared to be prototypes. Two little Autobots and a Black Knight trespassing on Britannian territory. RC and Colin glared as the former drew her arm blades and the Gurren loaded its Surger claw. Cliffjumper smirked, however. Who's ready to throw down? The red Autobot challenged. 'Cause I am. Explosions rocked the entire depot as Bulkhead, Rai in his blue Gekka, and their squadron of Wrecker Black Knights found themselves facing off against a group comprised of Dorotha in the Palamedes, Nonette in the Galician, and even Breakdown and Knockout. Putting little humans in the Wreckers. Getting a little desperate, Bulk. Breakdown mocked, causing the green Autobot to glare. Aw scrap, why can't we just blow this place up without any problems? Tamaki complained. Because it wouldn't be as fun otherwise. Knockout replied as he spun his electric prod and readied himself for a fight. Rai however glanced at the Galician as he knew exactly who was piloting it. Nonette, he thought to himself with a conflicted look on his face. The Knight of Nine herself, however, did not appear conflicted. She knew what she had to do, and she would accomplish her goal, no matter who stood in her way. Meanwhile, just outside the gates of the south end of the palace, the Gawain, Bumblebee, and Black Gekka found themselves surrounded on all sides by many more Gloucesters, being led by the last two Glaston Knights as their Gloucesters actually appeared to have their own built-in float systems, evident by the fact that their nightmares were hovering in the air. Zero. Darlton began. You and your alien companions have gone on with your rebellion long enough. For the sake of Her Highness, you will meet your end here. Guilford stated. Lelouch and Toto glared from their respective nightmares as Cece also readied herself. Bumblebee took a boxing stance and made a hand gesture for the enemy to come forward. Bring it. The scout played through his radio. At the same time, Optimus Prime and the four holy swords were already inside the palace itself, and as they expected, they faced not only a gathering of at least 24 Gloucesters, but even the hovering Galahad, piloted by the Knight of One himself. Optimus Prime, we meet again. Bismarck stated. Britannia's reign of terror over this country ends here, Bismarck. Optimus declared as he drew his axe. Does it? Bismarck replied as the Galahad drew its massive sword and shot down at the Autobot leader with the 24 Gloucesters shooting forward as well. As the four holy swords rolled in their Gekkas to engage the enemy units, Optimus met the Galahad as they clashed their weapons together. Pendragon. In stark contrast to the chaos currently occurring in the Tokyo settlement, the capital city of Pendragon appeared in a state of calmness and order. Within the royal palace, virtually every member of Britannian royalty and nobility had all been assembled within the throne room, just before the empty throne as they waited for His Majesty to come and make his announcement. Don't you think it's rather odd that Father would make a national announcement now? Odysseus EU Britannia wondered aloud as he stood next to three of his half-sisters. With everything that's happening in Area 11 right now, I can only assume that he wants to assure the rest of our empire that he has the situation under control. Layla La Britannia assumed. Pardon me, but given this is Zero and those Autobots we're dealing with, I'd be lying to say if I wasn't nervous. Odysseus replied. You're nervous about everything, Odysseus. Grow a backbone, would you? The much younger Carini no Britannia chastised. I agree. Beatrice Franks, the former Knight of Two, also said. All the Knights of the Round are currently in Area 11, not to mention Schneisel. Under his command, there is little doubt that insolent Zero and those foolish machines will meet their end. I can't help but wonder though why you aren't there as well, Ms. Franks. You are the former Knight of Two. Guinevere de Britannia pointed out. Someone has to stay in the capital to ensure its security. Beatrice replied. Kanan, you work closer with Schneisel than anyone. Do you truly believe he can defend Area 11? Odysseus asked the Earl who served the second prince. I'm quite certain Prince Schneisel knows what he is doing. Kanan answered. However, while he appeared calm on the surface, he was already aware of what Schneisel had planned and would ensure that it was a success. That is why he is here in Pendragon. Presenting his Imperial Majesty. One guard announced as the current ruler of Britannia, Charles Z. Britannia stepped out from the side, walking towards his throne before sitting down. All hail Charles Z. Britannia, the 98th Emperor of Britannia. Beatrice announced before everyone else joined in. All hail Charles. All hail Charles. All hail Charles. However, Charles himself raised his hand to end the chanting as the entire throne room was rendered silent. This had better be good, Odysseus. Charles spoke with an impatient look on his face. The current quarrel in Area 11 is not to be trifled with. Whatever this announcement is, it had better be worth my time. This only caused Odysseus and everyone else to look in confusion, all save for Kanan, who continued to look stoic if only to maintain a facade of innocence. But father, you were the one who told us to come here. The eldest of the Emperor's children said. What? Charles questioned. That's correct. Guinevere also spoke. You had called for an assembly of the entire royal family and all nobility within the homeland. It's true, I received that same summons from you as well, Your Majesty. Beatrice added. I made no such summons. Charles stated. I was requested to come here by Odysseus. Father, I didn't request anything. Odysseus himself sounded more than a little confused as all the assembled royalty and nobility whispered and murmured with each other, hoping that someone had an explanation. Charles himself was about to call for order when a guard suddenly ran in through the main doors. Your Majesty! Your Majesty! The guard ran in as he had a panicked look on his face. Something is approaching the capital. That got everyone's attention. What's approaching the capital? Carney asked. I don't know, but it's something unbelievably massive. The guard stated. Get me a visual. Now. Charles ordered the guards. Yes, Your Highness. Both guards nodded as they each took out a remote of some kind. Just above the main doors, a large screen had turned on to show the perimeter of the sky around Pendragon. On the screen, everyone could see a certain warship already making its way to the capital. What is that? Layla exclaimed. It looks like a floating aircraft. Odysseus stuttered. It's far bigger than the Avalon. Beatrice said with caution. I've never seen anything like it before. However, Charles knew exactly what it was as he stood up from his throne. The Nemesis. His fists clenched once he realized that he had essentially been tricked. Megatron. The massive Decepticon warship known as the Nemesis was already at the capital city, hovering about 5 miles away, the royal palace already within the sights of the Decepticon leader who stood at the top of his warship. Long have we been in hiding, ruling from the shadows. Megatron began to announce. Too long. The Britannian Empire has forgotten its place, believing its false power to be true might. All due to the treachery of Charles Z. Britannia. But that is about to change. No more disguises. No more mercy. The time has come to remind this world who its true masters are. He exclaimed as he turned around to look down at the deck where a small army of Decepticons had all been gathered. This army consisted of aerial Vehicons, Seeker Vehicons, who had a silver and black paint job as opposed to the typical purple, and even the massive Insecticons, all being led by the Seeker trio of Starscream, Thundercracker, and Skywarp. Decepticons, transform and rise up. Megatron ordered as he raised his fists, followed by all the Decepticons present raising their fists as well. "I'd thought he'd never ask." Starscream shouted enthusiastically as he, Thundercracker, and Skywarp all transformed and shot up from the warship, followed by the small army of Decepticons, comprised of fighter jets, helicopters, and the Insecticons in their Herculean beetle forms, and all of them shot directly toward the capital. "Come my armada! Attack! Attack! Attack!" With that order, all the aerial units opened fire with a series of energon blasts and/or missiles, already blowing away the outer perimeter of the city. It didn't even stop there as a large ground bridge portal opened up, allowing a small army of ground-based Vehicons, in the forms of sports cars or even the larger tank variety, to roll out and join in the attack. Most Vehicons already transformed and opened fire with their energon blasters. From within the palace, all nobility and royalty watched the chaos unfold in dead silence. Nobody had ever directly attacked Britannia's capital before, so the fact that an actual attack was taking place in front of them almost felt like they were watching people spontaneously turn into cows. It almost felt completely alien to them. Charles, however, had a look of pure rage, not just for the attack, but the lack of reactions from his subjects and gathered children. "Are we blind?" he exclaimed, getting their attention. "Deploy the Royal Guard and all available military. Move." With that, all nobility and even those among royalty attempted to organze and get in contact with the military forces stationed around Pendragon. "Franks!" Charles exclaimed, getting the attention of the former Knight of Two. "Yes, Your Highness." She stood at attention. "You will lead the Royal Guard in repelling this attack. Take the Vincent," Charles ordered. "Yes, Your Majesty." She bowed before leaving. Once that was done, the Emperor made a beeline straight for the exit. The second he entered the hallway, a pair of masked and robed individuals from the Geass order quickly approached him. "Your Majesty," one tried to get his attention. "Be ready to assemble Pluton," Charles ordered, not even listening to what they had to say. The city's defenses and the Royal Guard can only hold them for so long. But once we unveil the full might of Pluton, we'll drive them back. "Your Highness," the second one tried to speak. "We need to get to the thought elevator immediately," Charles continued. "We can't," the first one exclaimed, causing Charles to look at him in surprise. "We can't access the thought elevator. It's been seized. All the men guarding it are dead." "What?" Ravage pinned one masked man of the Geass order to the ground as he bit down to rip his throat out. Ravage stood up alongside Frenzy and Rumble as they observed their work. At least 24 members of the Geass order, all those assembled in Pendragon, laid ripped apart, sliced open, shot, or pulverized, leaving nothing more than a stained mess on the ground. Right behind the Minicon trio was Soundwave, who observed the thought elevator that laid underneath the royal palace. At the same time, the silent Decepticon had been jamming all forms of communication to prevent an SOS from being sent out to other Britannian areas, and even the Geass order itself. "We've also been unable to get in contact with Pluton or anyone else in the order," the second one stated to the shocked Emperor. How is this possible?" the shocked Charles thought to himself. They knew where the thought elevator was. "Without it, I can't get to the Sword of Akasha and get in contact with Marianne. How can?" The Emperor's eyes widened with dreadful realization as only one person could know about this. "Where is VV? We don't know. He hasn't made contact with us in weeks. Big brother, what did you do?" Charles thought before he tried to steel himself as he clenched his fists. "So be it then. We stand our ground. Ready the Excalibur." That took the two men by shock. "But, Your Highness, it hasn't been tested. To use it in a real battle now. Are you questioning my orders?" Charles exclaimed in anger, which was enough to silence any further protests. No, Your Majesty." Right away, they ran down the hallway to prepare the weapon in question, leaving Charles alone as his whole body shook. One would think it was with rage, and while there was a great deal of anger boiling in his body, one look into his eyes, and one could easily see the fear that lingered on as well. Several tanks, helicopters, and jets had already been deployed to try and push back against the Decepticon invasion force, but they were destroyed as quickly as they were deployed. All helicopters and fighter jets were shot down by the Seekers and other aerial units, showcasing the Decepticons' air superiority, while the ground armaments such as tanks were easily blown away by the ground-based Vehicons or torn apart by the Insecticons on the ground. One Viacon trooper stomped on a tank to crush and destroy it. It's almost too easy. However, he was quickly decapitated by a slash Harken that shot out from a newly arrived Golden Nightmare, the RPI-212 Vincent. The Harken returned to said nightmare as it drew a pair of dual-wield MVS blades and shot into a trio of Viacons that shot at it, but the Golden Nightmare maneuvered out of the way before getting in close to quickly slice off the arms and heads of the three Viacons. The Vincent would soon find itself facing Starscream, who had transformed from his vehicle mode to land in front of the Golden Nightmare, followed by Skywarp and Thundercracker. Well now, what do we have here? Starscream mused. The Decepticons. The pilot of the Vincent, Beatrice Franks, glared at the trio. I've heard how contemptible you were. But to dare attack Pendragon, the very capital of Britannian itself. Your arrogance knows no bounds. I know that voice. Thundercracker recognized the person in the cockpit. Beatrice Franks, former Knight of Two, now a Britannian Duchess, secretary to Britannia's head minister, and special duty general inspector. That's a bit of a mouthful. Skywarp commented. Can't you just say she's one of Britannia's higher-ups? That's so much easier. I am afraid, my dear Beatrice, that Britannia has outlived its usefulness. Starscream said with a sneer. And to be quite frank, you've honestly had this coming for some time. Your nation's constant bickering and flaunting of your supposed superiority can only be tolerated so much. Beatrice glared as she gripped the Vincent's controls hard. You, how dare you? You have no idea what you are dealing with, do you? As she made her exclamation, over 200 new nightmares rolled out from trap-door-like entrances around the palace. They all appeared to be White Sutherlands and quickly mobilized behind the Vincent, with 100 more White Sutherlands, each with their own float systems, assembled in the air. Even several large turrets popped up from all around the palace's walls and rooftop. This is the Royal Guard of the Britannian homeland. Beatrice continued. They live to serve our empire and we will defend our nation even from vile machines like you. However, rather than be intimidated, the Seeker trio actually laughed in amusement. Oh, that is just rich. Skywarp chuckled. You think you can actually defeat all this? Thundercracker also laughed as he gestured to the army of Decepticons that had mobilized behind them. All the Viacons, and even the Seeker variety, along with the Insecticons, all transformed from their respective vehicle or insectoid forms and mobilized behind their commanders. I have waited so long for this moment. Starscream stated, your supposed holy empire, is about to meet a rather, unholy, end. Beatrice growled. All hail Britannia, she shouted as she led the charge of Britannian nightmares, while the palace's turrets opened fire. Decepticons attack. Starscream ordered as he, Thundercracker, and Skywarp all transformed, along with several other Seeker Viacons as all the remaining Decepticons on the ground ran forward and charged. It wasn't even a full second before the armies met and engaged in an explosive and bloody conflict. As the battle erupted all over Pendragon, Megatron flew down in his Cybertronian jet mode before transforming to land on the ground. Right as he landed, however, he was attacked by 4 White Sutherlands that attempted to shoot at him, but he looked more amused than anything. Cute. Megatron commented before obliterating them easily with his fusion cannon. Well, Megatron is here. He announced in a dramatic and mocking fashion, purposely imitating Cornelia if only to ridicule her. Is there no one who can challenge me? Megatron. The Decepticon leader turned around as he saw the metallic floorboards behind him began to open up and something slowly arose from the elevated ground. It was a nightmare, one that stood as tall as Megatron himself. Its central chest and cockpit area was black, as opposed to its white arms and legs. It also carried a large sword in its right hand. It had golden shoulder plates, with a white head unit, red eyes, and golden spikes along its head in the shape of a crown. This was the personal nightmare of Charles Z. Britannia, the IFXV-999 Excalibur. Charles. Megatron acknowledged. That's quite the toy you have there. What is the meaning of this? Charles exclaimed, his voice sounding through the speakers of his massive nightmare. You dare to attack me? To attack the head of the Holy Britannian Empire. You may have been my mentor in the past, but I am no longer a child and no longer your student. This unacceptable and I will not stand for it. I will defeat you and wipe the Decepticons from the face off the earth for their treachery. Evolution is on my side. On the side of Britannia as it always has been. Megatron actually chuckled as he slowly clapped his hands together. Bravo, excellent performance, Charles. But we both know that's all it was, a performance. It's always been a performance for you, nothing more. Megatron stopped clapping as he narrowed his optics. Everything you've said, not just to me, but your entire nation, your own family, everything about evolution being continuous, Britannia being the symbol of humanity's progress, how it's your right to subjugate this world, it's all a lie. You accuse me of dishonesty, Charles growled. This is not an accusation, it's fact. Megatron continued. The truth is, despite your constant preaching of warfare, you desire a more peaceful world. That is why you, your brother, the immortal known as CC, and your latest consort Marianne, have created Ragnarok. Correct. Charles couldn't contain his gasp, which caused Megatron to sneer as he continued. The four of you despised this world, believing it to be nothing but a pit of despair and destruction. However, rather than actually attempt to change this world with your power as the Emperor, you feared humanity would go against you as you believe warfare is their nature, and you're not entirely wrong. So, while you fostered Britannia's Darwinist beliefs in the spotlight, you and your followers intended to use your power and knowledge over Geass to slay your supposed gods and merge the collective consciousness of humanity into a singularity, supposedly allowing you in this world to ascend to a higher plane of existence and allowing you to finally achieve the gentler existence you so desired. I can't say for certain if this would also affect Cybertronians, or we would simply be left behind in this form of existence, but either way, you and those you claim to care for would be free, or rather more specifically, you would be able to escape from me. Megatron gave a slight chuckle. I'll give you credit for coming up with such a complex and underhanded scheme to deceive not only your own nation, but your own family. Speaking as your mentor, I'm actually rather proud. Or rather I would be, if your desire wasn't so childish. For the first time in his life, Charles had no idea what to say. Megatron had hit right on the ball. How could you have learned all that? By chance, honestly. Megatron replied. I had met a former contractor of CC who brought the existence of Geass to my attention. After that, it wasn't long before I began to believe you were hiding something from me. But ultimately, the reveal of Ragnarok came from your brother. Charles's pupils shrunk at that. What did you do to Victor? VV came to me. Megatron sneered. Your brother isn't as loyal to you as you believe. First, he was the one who killed your beloved Marianne out of a childish form of envy and deceived you for it. Then, he actually met me in person, trying to coerce me into joining him, believing his immortality made him invincible, when it really just further inflated his ego. Though I was somewhat surprised when I learned that you were aware of Louch's identity as Zero and yet made no attempt to stop him. Did some pesky form of fatherly love get in your way? Or did you fear the Autobots would learn of your precious Ragnarok and would destroy it? Probably the latter, correct. Charles said nothing in response as he glared hatefully at his former teacher. Well, as I said, I'm quite proud at how well you were able to deceive me. However, it also said deception that I cannot tolerate. Megatron spoke in a serious tone. You've crossed the line, Charles, and I have no intent on giving you a second chance. I will tear down Britannia and seize your Geass order and precious Ragnarok from you. And you will not live to see tomorrow. Do you honestly think I'm going to stand here and let you destroy the very dream that my brother and Marianne shared with me? Charles exclaimed. I will not let you wipe away everything we've built. He shot the Excalibur forward and swung his sword down toward Megatron, forcing the Decepticon leader to swerve to the side and avoid it as he drew his own blade before charging at the Excalibur to clash metal against metal. As they locked swords, the Excalibur lifted its left hand to shoot 5 Harkins from its fingertips point blank at Megatron to knock him back before firing a set of familiar red beams from a pair of Hadron cannons on its shoulders, which Megatron could just barely avoid, leaving him open for the Excalibur to rush him and swing his sword at Megatron, scratching his chest, and even causing him to bleed dark energon. As the Excalibur moved in closer, Megatron parried the sword with his blade before delivering a punch to its face to knock it back before delivering a powerful kick to send it flying and crashing into the side of the palace. Megatron felt the cut on his chest. It was only a minor mesh wound, nothing worth worrying about. However, he looked rather intrigued as the Excalibur emerged from the smoke. Megatron aimed his fusion cannon and opened fire, only for a powerful blaze luminous shield to appear in front of the large nightmare and deflect the blasts. An interesting nightmare, Megatron mused. Why do I have a feeling it was built with me in mind? Were you actually expecting this? He smirked. You continue to impress me, my boy. I am not a boy. Charles exclaimed. I am no weakling. This is the Excalibur, constructed by the Geass Order. We spent years studying every technique you've mastered, finding ways to counter any attack you could possibly conceive of. Everything that was built from our Empire's best nightmares was copied and improved for this single unit with one purpose in its existence, to destroy you. I'm touched, Charles. Megatron said in a feigned tone, almost mimicking someone who received a gift from a close friend. To go all this way for me. An impressive weapon, certainly. But it's only a weapon. No matter how strong a weapon is, the true factor that determines victory is the weapon's user. I know you, Charles. You may be a competent and ruthless strategist, but you are no warrior. As for me, Megatron drew his blade once more. I've honed my skills in the pits of Kaun. Charles roared, as did Megatron as the Decepticon leader and Emperor of Britannia charged at each other once more to clash their blades together. Japan, Tokyo Settlement, Royal Palace. Optimus Prime was sent crashing through a wall before rolling and landing on his feet, quickly drawing his Energon axe to block the sword strike from the Galahad that flew in after him. Their fight had already redecorated much of the inside of the north end of the palace, with the Prime and Knight of One currently dueling in the empty throne room where Cornelia and Euphemia would normally sit. Optimus, hang on. We're on our way. Chiba contacted him as Optimus continued to lock his weapon against the Galahads. Negative. Optimus relayed as he delivered a headbutt to the Galahad and knocked it back before swinging his axe to send it crashing through the wall. There are still multiple Britannian units within the palace. You must deal with them and provide aid to Zero, Toto, and Bumblebee should they need it. Waldstein wants me, this fight is mine alone. Understood. Chiba responded, leaving Optimus to deal with the Knight of One as his personal nightmare rolled out of the dust to face the last of the Primes once more. I appreciate that. Bismarck commented with a smirk. This how a duel should be. Two warriors locked in a battle to the death. In this moment, nothing else matters. Nothing but your own strength and will to survive. Optimus narrowed his optics as Bismarck continued. I may not agree with your convictions, Optimus Prime. But I have nothing but respect for your strength and power. And that is all Britannia recognizes, isn't it? Optimus replied. Physical strength and power, nothing more. It's how the world works. Bismarck said. It doesn't matter if Britannian, Japanese, or even human or something else. Even wild animals obey this rule. Strength determines everything. Survival of the fittest, Optimus stated. And that is why I oppose Britannia. Animals and other such creatures follow this rule of kill or be killed, if only to survive themselves. However, sentient beings such as humans and Cybertronians have the knowledge and capacity to find other methods. Ways of coexisting. You know this, your Emperor knows this, yet instead of using your power to help, you use it to destroy. It's not your nature, it's your choice. This is my choice, to use my power to protect and strengthen those who are weak. And if that means standing against the likes of you, your Emperor, and Megatron, then so be it. Bismarck smirked. Well then, show me the capacity of your strength. Your will to protect, and I will show you mine. He shot the Galahad straight for Optimus, who charged forward to clash his axe against the Galahad's sword once more. However, Optimus held his axe with only his right hand before converting his left hand into a blade, which he used to strike at the Galahad, forcing Bismarck to pull it back and gain some distance before shooting a series of slash harkens from his nightmare's right hand, which Optimus rolled to avoid before converting his blade arm into an ion blaster and shooting at the Galahad. The Knight of One rolled his nightmare out of the way of the energy blasts, using the Galahad's blaze luminous shield to protect himself from any stray blasts before gunning straight at Optimus, who quickly brought up his axe to block the thrusting sword strike, but Bismarck wasn't done yet. He drove his nightmare further, pushing against Optimus through the wall and out of the throne room. He pushed Optimus further and further, crashing through wall after wall, until Optimus had enough and converted his left hand into an ion blaster again and shot at the Galahad's legs, destroying the land spinner system before Optimus used the Galahad's own momentum to flip it over himself and send it crashing through another wall. The Ark. Both the Zero Squad and the Wreckers have engaged with the enemy at the power station and military depot respectively. Fix-It reported. It seems the Knights of the Round and a few Decepticons are there. Though our main force continues to advance through the settlement, Ironhide and Suzaku have come into contact with the Knights of 12 and 6. Optimus, Zero, and their teams are also engaged with the enemy. They all appear to be holding their own though. Wheeljack and Dreadwing however appear to be in combat with an unknown unit. So far so good, I'd say. Ratchet reported. But only a few Decepticons. Nothing more. It doesn't seem like it. Fix-It replied. At least not yet. Meanwhile, Shirley, Nunnally, Kagaya, Sayoko, and Chigusa continued to watch and listen to the reports of the battle. The scene was so tense, one could feel the anxiety they were all experiencing. Anything can happen from a fight like this. However, that anxiety was broken when Shirley felt her cell phone vibrate. Hello. She got up and answered her phone. Millie. What is? Wait. What? She practically screamed, which drew the attention of the other girls and women, and even the two Autobots. Are you guys okay? Alright, we'll send someone. Just hang on, please. She quickly hung up. Shirley, what's wrong? Nunnally asked. Decepticons or Ashford, Shirley exclaimed in alarm. They've got Millie, Rivals, and Nina. What? Sayoko exclaimed as everyone else gasped in alarm. Fix-It was already on his console to get a radar image of the school. She's right. I'm detecting 3 Decepticon signals at Ashford Academy. Oh no. Nunnally gasped as Sayoko and Kagaya tried to comfort her. We have to get them out of there. Shirley stated. Is there anything we can do? Chigusa asked. I'll contact Zero and see if he can send someone. Ratchet was already at the controls. I'll also send a text to Monica. Shirley was on her phone. The Knight of 12, Kagaya questioned skeptically. Is that a wise idea? I know what you're thinking. She might be a Knight of the Round, but she's not a bad person. Shirley quickly said. If our friends are in danger, she'll help them. Fine, do it, Ratchet told her as he accessed his own communications. Meanwhile, outside and within the innermost perimeter of the south end of the palace, Bumblebee and Todos Gekka stood back to back as several Glosters attempted to thrust them with their respective lances. Bumblebee activated his own Energon blasters to take down the front two before a third shot at B, though he was able to grab the lance while Todos shot forward with his Gekka's katana to cut down 2 charging Glosters before speeding away to avoid Bumblebee hauling the lance of the one Gloster he wrestled against before throwing the nightmare itself into another. At the same time, the Gawain was in the middle of an aerial battle against both Darlton and Guilford. Lelouch fired the Hadron cannons to shoot them down, prompting both knights to fly and avoid it before opening fire with their guns at the Gawain, which was protected by the Blaze Luminous system. Lelouch grunted in minor annoyance. He knew these two were veteran soldiers and he still had less experience with the Gawain, but that didn't make it any less irritating. Zero. Ratchet got in contact with him as CC steered Gawain straight into the air with the 2 Britannian knights flying after him. We kinda got my hands full right now, Ratchet. Lelouch stated. The Decepticons are at your school and have taken 3 of your classmates hostage. Ratchet exclaimed, causing Lelouch to gasp in surprise. What? This would have left him open for Guilford and Bismarck to charge him, but CC pulled on the controls to steer the Gawain out of the way just in time. Why them? Lelouch thought to himself, still in shock. To gain leverage over Suzaku. I don't know, but they need your help now. We can't afford to send anyone else from our other teams or the front lines, Ratchet told him. Understood. Lelouch replied before contacting his friend. Bumblebee. I need you at Ashford now. Millie and the others are in trouble. The Decepticons are there. Bumblebee had punched down one Gloster when he got the alert. Got it, he bleeped in confirmation before turning to Toto. I gotta go. Then go. Zero and I can handle this. Toto told him as he sliced another Gloster in half. Bumblebee then ran and transformed into his vehicle mode to zoom away from the palace as fast as he could, which didn't go unnoticed by Guilford. The Autobot is escaping. He won't get far. Darlton was about to fly after him with Guilford right behind, only for the Gawain to fly right into them and smash them off their flight path. Both knights tried to stabilize themselves as they found the Gawain blocking their way. You two better stay focused on the opponent in front of you. Lelouch glared as he fired all 10 of the Gawain/Harkins, forcing the 2 soldiers to avoid it. The Ark. Bumblebee is already on his way and should be at the school within 10 minutes. Fix-It already had a lock on his signal. Will he be okay all by himself? Chigusa asked with concern. I wouldn't worry, Nunnally assured. I know Bumblebee can help them. He won't be alone either. Shirley said. I just got a reply from Monica, saying she was on the way. I'll be sure to take that into account when I see her. Ratchet said as he prepared to leave the bridge, much to their confusion. Fix-It, prepare a ground bridge to Ashford. Once I leave, you're in charge. Though surprised, he also understood, given the circumstances. I understand. Ratchet, Shirley asked. They may require a medic. Ratchet said as he was about to leave. Wait, please take me with you. Shirley pleaded, much to everyone's shock. Shirley, Kagaya exclaimed in surprise. I'm not a fighter, but those are my friends there too. Please, let me help. They need me, the brunette pleaded. Ratchet would have argued against it, but knowing how stubborn this girl was, he relented as he turned around and offered his hand to her. Of course, they do. He said with a small smile. Tokyo settlement, 2 minutes earlier. As the Black Knights and all their forces were able to push back against the Britannian military, Ironhide and the Lancelot found themselves engaged with the Mordred and Florence respectively. Ironhide rolled out of the way as the hovering Mordred fired a series of Varus shots from its shoulder-mounted weapons, prompting Ironhide to return fire with his cannons. But, the heavily armored Nightmare was able to avoid these blasts as it shot higher into the air. Meanwhile, Suzaku clashed his Lancelot's MVS against that of the Florence in midair. Monica, are you actually fighting with Britannia right now? Suzaku exclaimed. I'm a Knight of the Round and I have a duty, Monica tried to reply with a stutter as she sounded unsure herself. A duty to slaughter the innocent. Suzaku shouted in anger as the Lancelot delivered a kick to send the Florence crashing to the ground. A duty to abandon Princess Euphemia after she only wanted to help. Monica had no reply to give as a part of her agreed with everything Suzaku said. Why was she here? What was she even fighting for? Her thoughts however came to a halt as she felt her phone vibrate, much to her confusion. Who would send her a text now of all times? She saw the sender and looked in surprise. Shirley. But she was even more shocked about what the text read. Decepticons at Ashford. Millie, rivals, and Nina in trouble. Please help them. How could she know about the Decepticons? Monica thought to herself before she noticed the incoming Lancelot, but quickly shot her Florence into the air. I have to go, Suzaku. She exclaimed as she took to the skies and left the battlefield. I don't know what's going on, but my friends at that school are innocent. She thought as her resolve became that of solid steel. And I will not let those monsters hurt them. Wait. Suzaku was about to fly after her, only for the Mordred to suddenly fly in and ran the Lancelot, causing it to fall and crash onto the ground as Ironhide quickly ran up to cover him. They both glanced up at the Mordred, completely unaware that inside, a red ring had formed in Anya's eyes as someone else took control. I won't let you get in Charles's way. Marianne stated as she resumed her fire on the pair. Meanwhile, entire sky lit up with explosions as Dreadwing's jet mode and the jackhammer launched a series of missiles at the Siegfried. However, Jeremiah was able to control this massive machine, as his cybernetic body was hooked directly into its systems. He spun the Siegfried almost like a top, the spikes around it generating purple electricity to create a barrier that not only blocked the missiles but also shot itself toward the pair as they did their best to avoid it. Jeremiah halted the Siegfried as its spikes came together again to try and fire its massive purple beam, forcing the jackhammer and Dreadwing to fly around and avoid the destructive beam as it carved through the clouds and any tall buildings as it pointed downward. Britannia could not have invented something this destructive. Dreadwing stated. Sounds like your buddy's handiwork. Wheeljack commented. This machine has a devastating offense and a near impenetrable defense. I can't see a way to bring it down. Dreadwing said as they avoided another laser blast. At least not in the traditional sense. Wheeljack smirked as an idea came to mind. Stay back, I got this. He shot the jackhammer forward, much to Dreadwing's confusion. Wheeljack, what are you doing? Hey, orange boy. Wheeljack called to Jeremiah, getting his attention. How about a game of chicken? The wrecker challenged as he fired the jackhammer's energon blasts at the Siegfried. The cybernetic Jeremiah had a maniacal smirk. "Yes, I accept your challenge." He shot the Siegfried directly at the jackhammer in response, already spinning and turning on its defenses to avoid the energon shots that the jackhammer fired at it, but Wheeljack kept his ship gunning straight at him. Both flying vehicles got closer and closer, and Wheeljack knew he had to time it just right. When it looked like they were about to crash into each other, the wrecker slammed on the ejection button to shoot himself out of the cockpit just as the jackhammer crashed into the Siegfried. Wheeljack was already in freefall as he saw both his ship and the smoking Siegfried falling to the ground before they both crashed. Fortunately, Wheeljack was saved by Dreadwing, who flew his jet mode directly under him, allowing the wrecker to grab onto the Seeker's wings and halt his fall. "I knew you wreckers were reckless, but that..." Dreadwing had no idea what kind of response to give to that particular stunt. "That was insane." "Hey, it worked, didn't it?" Wheeljack said as Dreadwing flew both of them toward the crash site. It wasn't long before the pair had arrived at the smoking remains of the jackhammer and what appeared to be the Siegfried within a small crumbled building. Wheeljack hopped onto the ground, enabling Dreadwing to transform into his Cybertronian form as the pair observed the destruction. "Apologies for your ship," Dreadwing said. Can probably haul it back and fix it up." Wheeljack shrugged before turning to see the half-buried and smoking Siegfried, causing him to smirk. "Guess this orange is all squished, However, both the wrecker and Seeker were caught off guard as the Siegfried began to move and shift, prompting them both to step back as they looked in awe to see that the nightmare was actually transforming. When it was all done, a new Titan-sized machine had burst its way out of the rubble to fully reel itself. It was about twice the size of the likes of Optimus and Megatron. Its lower spikes had transformed and merged with a pair of limbs that emerged out of the central sphere, taking the form of a pair of legs, while the upper spikes did the same with more machinery that emerged from the transformed upper area, now appearing to be massive arms. The remaining spike had popped out of its back to generate some purple electricity which seemed to power it as the central green head unit slowly rose from the top to flash a pair of red optics at the two Cybertronians. "I won't be killed so easily," Jeremiah exclaimed as he could control this machine as if he did his own body, lift in his own arms, and simultaneously lifting the arms of the transformed Siegfried to try and bring them down on Wheeljack and Dreadwing, who leapt back to avoid the devastating impact. Dreadwing narrowed his optics as he drew his cannon. "It seems our work is not done yet." "Yeah, I can see that," Wheeljack replied as he drew his swords to face the massive machine. "All right, let's dance," he challenged as his faceplate covered his mouth. Power station. Cliffjumper fired at two of the pink Vincents from the Valkyrie squadron, but they flew through the air to avoid the blasts as they each drew a pair of MVS blades and shot down towards Cliffjumper, forcing him to leap back and avoid the slashes. One Valkyrie tried to rush and slice at him, but Cliffjumper swerved to the side to grab the Nightmare's arm and flip it over himself. However, before he could act, he was forced to jump back as the second Valkyrie launched its dual slash Harkins at him. RC was in a similar situation, surrounded by the other two Valkyrie Vincents, using her own arm blades to block and parry their swords. She blocked the sword strike of one before sweeping her feet at its legs to knock it down and flipped over the second to try and shoot it, but the Vincent quickly swung its sword back at her, forcing her to block the strike with her arm blades once more. Meanwhile, the Percival and Gurren rolled parallel to each other as Colin shot her Nightmare's arm-mounted gun, while Luciano retaliated with a series of missiles from his own Nightmare's shield, acting on both offense and defense. However, while Colin did her best to avoid the missiles, one hit the ground in front of her to send the Gurren flying and sliding across the ground. It was then pinned down by the Percival to keep it from getting back up. Colin. RC was about to come in and help, but the two Valkyries she was fighting blocked her path and swung their blades at her, forcing RC to defend herself. Question 11. What do people value most? Luciano taunted. "Go to hell you damn wannabe con," Colin exclaimed in anger and defiance. "Wrong answer," Luciano stated. "Here's the right answer, their own lives." The claws on the Percival's right arm spun together, taking the form of an energized drill and was about to be brought down on Colin when suddenly the Tristian had leapt to deliver a powerful kick to the Percival and send it crashing into a nearby building. This was a huge surprise, not just for Colin, but the other two Autobots, as well as the 4 Valkyrie soldiers. However, Cliffjumper was quickly able to get over his surprise first as he grabbed one of the Vincents and slammed it into the second one to knock it down before throwing that very same one into the other two that were in front of RC and knock all 3 down at once. "Gino," Colin muttered. "She said Colin, as in Colin Statfeld." Gino asked as the Gurren pulled itself up, right as Cliffjumper and RC ran to join their partner, the later standing more protectively in front of the Gurren as she aimed her Energon blaster at the Tristian. The Gurren's cockpit opened up as Colin revealed herself to the Knight of 3. "It's Colin Kazuki actually." Likewise, the Tristian's cockpit opened to reveal Gino as well. "Huh, so you're a Black Knight. I honestly had no idea. Why'd you help her?" RC questioned. "You're a Knight of the Round, one of Britannia's elite. Maybe, after seeing what happened at the Special Zone I think I understand why you guys are fighting," Gino said with a somber face. I can't be a part of that. I might be a Britannian but, I never wanted this." "So, you wanna come over to our side?" Cliffjumper asked in a casual sort of tone. "Think you'll like it better?" Gino had a small smile. "Yeah, I think I will." "Wow, this is a surprise." The 4 turned to see the Percival already recovered with the 4 Valkyrie Vincents right behind it. "I knew you were a softy Weinberg but this is pretty much treason." "Oh, like you care about that stuff." Gino glared at the Knight of 10. "The whole reason you even joined was to kill people." "Hey, it's what makes a Britannian soldier," Luciano said calmly as he sat in his nightmare. "And it's why I'm quitting. Right now," Gino stated as he got back in the Tristian and stood alongside the Gurren, RC, and Cliffjumper. "Think you guys could let me help out?" "I don't see why not." Cliffjumper smirked. "Welcome aboard. We'll let you play along for now, but I got my eye on you just in case," RC said but still accepted, nonetheless. "You join us, you're gonna have a lot to answer for with the rest of our friends. You know that, right?" Colin told him. "That's fine." Gino accepted. "Guess I owe you guys that much." "Really?" Luciano questioned. "You're gonna betray your empire just like that?" "Pretty much," Gino confirmed. The only response that came from Luciano was a hearty laugh, one that caused the RC, Colin, and even Cliffjumper to look at him with disgusted and confused expressions. "Finally. I've really been sick of your bright and happy attitude since we met. Now I finally get to shut you up for good and be all legal about it since you're a traitor now. You hear that, my Valkyries? Let's kill them all." Luciano then shot his Percival forward as the Valkyrie squadron followed behind him. In response, the Gurren, RC Tristan, and Cliffjumper all charged directly at the enemy squadron. Military Depot. Tamaki and his squadron opened fire with their beret missiles that forced the enemy group to scatter, with Breakdown running along the side to avoid the explosions. However, while he was able to escape from the missile barrage, he wasn't able to escape from the charging Bulkhead who decked him across the face with his right mace, who then delivered his left mace into Breakdown's chest. But Breakdown recovered to deliver a fierce headbutt to knock Bulkhead back before Breakdown fired a point-blank missile at him to send the Green Wrecker flying into a burning building. Several other Beret attempted to shoot at Knockout in his vehicle more, who seemed quick enough to avoid the blasts as he gunned straight for one Beret before quickly transforming and thrusting his electric prod into the Beret's neck to short it out. However, another Beret drove itself toward him at high speeds, this one being piloted by none other than Tamaki, as Knockout couldn't avoid it as it clipped him across his chest to knock him down. "Hey Khan, how's your paint job?" Tamaki smirked. Knockout gave a gasp as he saw the massive scratch across his chest before he glared at Tamaki. "Oh, you're gonna need more than a doctor when I'm through with you." He drew his buzz saw in one hand while wielding his prod in the other before charging at Tamaki. At the same time, the Gekka pre-production clashed its katana against the sword of the Palamedes. Rai tried to reach out with his Radiant Wave Surger, but Dorothea was quick to slap it away before pulling back and opening fire with her Nightmare's arm-mounted gun, forcing Rai to swerve away with his Blue Nightmare, but Dorothea had anticipated that as she shot at him at even faster speeds to deal a powerful kick that knocked Rai down. He tried to pull the Gekka up, but the Palamedes pointed its blade right at him. "Kaiser and von Britannia," Dorothea began, "His Majesty demands your presence. That bastard can burn in hell for all I care," Rai exclaimed, not even trying to hide his anger. If I go there, it's only to kill him myself. You have no right to say that to your father. Dorothea glared. He is not father. Rai practically screamed. He murdered my mother and sister. If Zero and Optimus don't kill him, I will. You'll change your tone when I'm done with you. Dorothea stated. I'm taking you back to Pendragon one way or another, Kaiserin. She raised her blade and tried to bring it down to disable the Gekka, only for another sword to block it, causing Rai and Dorothea to look in shock. His name is Rai, Nonette stated, having blocked the attack herself in the Galician before sweeping its feet to force Dorothea back before drawing its Varus to shoot at her, but the Palamedes proved quick enough to avoid all the blasts. Nonette, Rai stuttered as he tried to pull himself up. Why did you? I failed you once before. She replied, her tone showing how truly remorseful she was. But never again. I'll stay and be by your side, even if it's alongside the Autobots and Black Knights. That caused Rai to gasp as tears of joy were already flowing in his eyes before he smiled. Nonette, thank you. Hearing those words almost caused Nonette to shed some tears of joy herself as she smiled. Nonette Enneagram, Knight of 9. Dorothea rolled up toward the duo. This is an unforgivable act of betrayal. How dare you turn against your country? Your emperor. The former Knight of the Round glared at the Britannian nightmare as she readied herself. I never once swore my loyalty to Charles Z. Britannia, not truly. I swore my loyalty to this young man here and I will protect him with my life. You intend to face me yourself, even though you've never defeated me before? Dorotha questioned. No, Rai said as he rolled his Gekka right next to the Galician. We both will. Millie quietly made her way toward the back entrance of the clubhouse, with Rivals and Nina right behind him, along with Arthur walking just underneath them. Once she made it to the door, Millie quietly opened it to peek and see if the coast was clear, which it appeared to be. Now they only had to wait for help to arrive. Millie, are you sure somebody's gonna come and get us? Rivals asked. I mean, even if they do, what are we gonna do about those giant robot monster things? Let's let them handle it, Millie said in a small whisper. Hopefully we can just give them the slip. She quickly noticed two pairs of headlights that quickly turned off to reveal a familiar yellow and black striped car driving up with an ambulance right next to it. Come on, our ride's here, she said as Rivals picked up Arthur and the three students quickly ran outside. The ambulance door opened to reveal Shirley as she stepped out. I'm so glad you guys are okay. While Millie was happy to see her friend, Nina and Rivals could not contain their surprise. Shirley. Rivals was almost tempted to scream, but Millie quickly covered his mouth as to not alert anyone. You're a Black Knight, Shirley. Nina stuttered. Guys, I promise I'll explain later. We just need to. Shirley however spotted something on the rooftop of the clubhouse. Oh scrap, look out. Hardshell had leapt from the roof straight down towards the group, prompting Bumblebee and Ratchet to transform and quickly grab the four humans, along with the cat, and rush backwards just as the Insecticon landed. Autobots. Hardshell acknowledged. Put down the children and allow us to extinguish your sparks. With that, the other two Insecticons flew over the clubhouse in their giant insect forms before transforming and landing next to their leader. Insecticons. It just had to be Insecticons. Bumblebee bleeped in annoyance as he and Ratchet set the kids, and Cat, down behind them. All of them, even Shirley, looked more than a little frightened at the sight of the Insecticons while Arthur just hissed at them. Shirley, take your friends and run. Now, Ratchet told her. But what about you guys? She exclaimed with worry. However, before anyone could make a move, two nightmares suddenly appeared from the air. One was the Florence, the other appeared to be a gray and orange Sutherland with its own float system. Both shot their Harkins at the trio of Insecticons, forcing them to scatter as the two nightmares landed on the ground alongside the surprised Autobots. The Florence, it's Monica. Shirley exclaimed with relief, the other Autobots also recognizing the Night of 12's nightmare. Monica looked through her nightmare's screens to see her friends were safe, to her relief, but was quite surprised to see the attire Shirley was wearing. A Black Knight uniform. Of course, that's how she knew about all this. Autobots. A familiar voice spoke from the Sutherland as its cockpit opened to reveal the female pilot inside. My name is Cecile Krumi. I'm a friend of Suzaku's and I'm here to help. As am I, Monica stated. I know that we probably have a lot to talk about, all of us, she said, referring to Shirley, who only looked away with partial shame. But that can all wait. We must work together to destroy these monsters. We're up against 3 Insecticons, we could really use the help. Ratchet. Even Bumblebee thought it was a good idea to team up. Very well. Ratchet agreed as he drew his arm blades before turning to the humans. As I said, Shirley, take your friends and find a safe place to hide. If we don't make it, call for a ground bridge and get yourself back to the Ark. Though hesitant, Shirley knew that the Autobots and Monica could handle this. Alright, go kick their skid plates. She turned to her friends. Come on guys, let's go. She led her friends away from the area as the 2 Autobots and 2 Britannian pilots stared down the 3 Insecticons. Well, this should be interesting. Hardshell mused sadistically. Crush them, he ordered, resulting in his 2 Insecticons roaring before they charged at the 4 allies, who charged at them as well. Shirley had managed to help Millie, Rivals, and Nina, along with Arthur, back into the clubhouse's main hall to find some cover. Why hello there. They all looked in surprise to see a familiar scientist with a causal smile on his face. Nice night for a revolution, don't you think? Lloyd, Millie exclaimed. In the flesh, Lloyd replied before noticing Shirley. Aha, you were one of Suzaku's classmates, right? And a Black Knight to boot. I honestly did not see that coming. You work with Suzaku. Shirley recognized him. But what are you doing here? Betraying my country. Lloyd said bluntly, much to their surprise, not just at his response but how calm and casually he said it. See, with Suzaku now working with the bots and BKs, Cecile decided to switch sides to help him, and I still want to be able to work with the Lancelot. And besides, maybe the Autobots won't be as stingy with their tech as the Decepticons were. Well, okay, but why did you come here? As in, why did you come to the school? Shirley asked. You here to rescue us? Rivals asked. Honestly had no idea you kids were even here, I'd thought you'd be evacuated. Lloyd answered. No, we came here because there's a certain project that I didn't want the Decepticons to get their hands on. Isn't that right, Nin? However, he quickly noticed that a certain bespectacled girl was no longer with them. Where is Nina? The 3 other students looked around in surprise to see their classmate was gone. What the, she was right here. Rivals exclaimed as he continued to hold Arthur. Nina, where are you? Shirley called out to her. It was then that Millie had remembered something. A little bit before the school festival, she remembered Nina talked about stopping by the science department about a present that Lloyd would help make her. This caused her to look with worry as she glanced toward the scientist with a serious expression. Lloyd, what exactly did you come here for? Nina had managed to make her way to the basement of the clubhouse where not only the Ganymede was stored, but the one place she had been working on her little present that Lloyd had given her. She had already finished it for the most part, now she just had to re-tinker it a bit and hook it up to the Ganymede. Those monsters, those Decepticons, they took Princess Euphemia. She questioned in her mind as the fear she had previously felt began to give way to anger and even hatred. They will pay for this. I'll show them. I'll show them all. Just you wait, Princess Euphemia, I promise to avenge you. Within the innermost confines of the palace, Optimus had continued his epic duel against Bismarck, though it seemed he had the Knight of One on the defensive now. Optimus and the Galahad crashed through the ceiling and fell into the lower levels of the palace, straight towards an empty bay where the nightmares were normally stored. Optimus was on top of the Galahad as they fell, with Bismarck attempting to fly away with the float system, but Optimus had delivered a punch to its face to knock it off course and send it crashing into a wall as Optimus leapt off and fell to the ground, scoring a rough landing on his feet while the Galahad slid down. However, Bismarck attempted to press the attack as he rolled at Optimus again with his Nightmare's sword as Optimus drew his axe to block and parry the blade, swerving around to behind the Galahad and delivering an elbow to the back of its head to knock it down. Optimus raised his axe to try and bring it down, but Bismarck activated his damaged float system in time to skid across the floor and avoid the axe as it embedded itself into the ground. Bismarck then quickly pulled up the Galahad and tried to charge at Optimus again while the axe appeared stuck on the ground. However, Optimus was able to convert both his hands into ion blasters and began to charge a shot. Seeing what he was doing, Bismarck quickly activated the Galahad's blaze luminous shields, But when Optimus opened fire with a dual-charged shot from his blasters and they hit the shield itself shattered, causing the device to short-circuit, with the shockwave of the blast sending the Galahad crashing into a wall. Bismarck had a look of concern on his face as he was already sweating, complete with a drop of blood coming from his mouth. At first, we were evenly matched, both at the special zone and when the fight began. But now, it's like he knows all my moves. Optimus quickly picked up his axe as Bismarck tried to steel himself. Did he study me before the battle? No, he's been analyzing me during this whole fight. Optimus charged Bismarck again with his Energon axe and tried to swing it down onto the Galahad, but Bismarck activated the float system again to shoot into the air, but due to the damage the Nightmare sustained, it was more equivalent to a jump as he landed on the other side of the chamber. This warrior, he's even stronger than Marianne. No choice, I have to use it. Optimus Prime. Without question, you are the greatest warrior I've ever had the honor of facing. But, defeat is not an option for me. Bismarck said as the stitches in his left eyelid broke apart, allowing his eye to open and reveal the Geass emblem that appeared to be permanently active in his left eye. I swear, by my title as the Knight of One, I will vanquish you. Optimus could sense that Bismarck had something planned, perhaps a hidden weapon. Well, whatever was the case, the leader of the Autobots stood firm as he held his axe in his right hand as his left converted into a blade. And I cannot allow myself to fall at your hands either, Bismarck Waldstein. Optimus declared. We end this now. Bismarck smirked, in a mixture of excitement and even minor sadism. Yes, I agree. Pendragon. The entire capital of the Holy Britannian Empire appeared to be in a state of complete chaos. The military forces consisting of the Royal Guard, as well as any other garrisons or units, appeared on a severe losing streak against the Decepticon forces, who not only had the Britannian forces outnumbered but also severely outgunned as well. However, as any Insecticons, Seekers, or helicopter Vehicons attempted to fly and approach the Royal Palace, they were quickly shot down by the large turrets that were stationed all over the building. That's another one down. One of the 4 turret operators exclaimed as he and his comrades were at the controls in a small control room. Target East .6 degrees is down. The second one reported. We can't keep this up. There are too many. The third shouted. Stifle that fear. We are Britannia. We will defend the homeland to our very last. The fourth one stated with determination, not noticing the door to the control room opening behind them. You did well to protect our empire. All 4 turned around in surprise to see Kanan pointing a gun at them. But the time has come for Britannia to end. He shot one of the men in the head, killing him instantly. Kanan. Another one exclaimed before he was also shot in the head, followed by the last 2. With all of them dead, Kanan quickly made his way to the console and typed the necessary commands to shut down all outer defenses. Once that was done, he pulled out a communications device and made contact with his associates. Thundercracker, Skywarp, the palace's outer defenses are down. The royal family and other nobles are still inside the throne room. Now would be a good time to move in. Roger that. Thundercracker acknowledged as he and Skywarp saw the turrets deactivate. Move in. He ordered as he and his partner transformed and flew directly at the palace, followed by a squadron of 4 Seeker Vehicons as well as 2 Insecticons. They opened fire with their respective Energon blasts to shoot their way into the palace. All the members of royalty and nobility assembled within all screamed and cowered as the explosion outside rocked the entire throne room. They all looked in clear fear to see the giant forms of Thundercracker, Skywarp, the 4 Seekers, and the 2 even larger Insecticons casually walk in. Sorry Britannia, but you're done. Skywarp smirked. Don't try anything unless you want to die. Despite the clear fear all of them were feeling, especially Odysseus, Carney, and Layla, Guinevere attempted to stand up to them. How dare you? Do you fools not realize who we are? She was cut off as Skywarp shot an Energon blast at a group of royals next to her to disintegrate them instantly, causing her, and everyone else to scream. But that screaming came to a halt as all 8 of the gathered Decepticons circled them to point their respective weapons at them. Yeah, we know who you are. Skywarp replied. A bunch of humans that we can squash without even thinking about it. If you want to live, I highly advise you to cooperate with us. Thundercracker told them. The Vincent hovered in the air as Beatrice used one of her swords to cut down on a helicopter Viacon and watch it crash, but as she looked around, she couldn't believe what she was seeing. No, the entire capital was on the verge of complete destruction. Most, if not all, the royal guard had been completely decimated. Their Sutherlands were shot down by Viacons, blown away by the tank variety, or literally ripped apart by the Insecticons. She even saw one Insecticon lift a white Sutherland up in the air to rip it half, causing the pilot to fall out and into the open mouth of the Insecticon for a gruesome and bloody end. All air forces had been all but obliterated as well, and she had even saw the Decepticons penetrate into the palace, meaning the royal family and all assembled nobility was at their mercy. "This can't be happening," Beatrice muttered. We can't lose, not like." She was suddenly cut off as something hit her from behind and exploded, causing what was left of the Vincent to fall and crash to the ground. The culprit was none other than Starscream, having shot her in the back from the ground with one of his missile arms. The Vincent was almost completely obliterated, its limbs twisted and broken, its cockpit hissed, and Barley opened as Beatrice, covered in blood, attempted to pull herself out, only for Starscream to stomp onto the cockpit and pin Beatrice underneath the rubble. "No, Britannia, can't fall, you can't do this," she muttered in fear, gazing up at the Decepticon second in command. Starscream couldn't contain his own wicked smirk. "We just did." He aimed his remaining missile and fired, ending Beatrice Franks, the former Knight of Two, in literal explosive fashion. Meanwhile, Megatron's battle against Charles's Excalibur Nightmare had made its way rather far from the Pendragon Royal Palace, but the building was still within their sights as the Excalibur rolled along the ground, with Megatron descending from the sky in his Cybertronian jet form, shooting at large Nightmare as it turned around and fired its dual hadron cannons at him, forcing Megatron to do a barrel roll and avoid the blasts before flying along the side and descending toward the ground. He then flew just above the ground and shot at the Excalibur at such speed that Charles could just barely react in time to throw up the Blaze Luminous shield just as the Decepticon leader transformed and dealt a powerful punch, with all the added force from the gained momentum, to not only shatter the shield but even send the Excalibur flying and skidding across the ground. Charles was able to pull the damaged Excalibur back up, taking quick note of the Blaze Luminous systems shorting out, only to be brought back into the battle as Megatron had already rushed to deliver a punch to the Nightmare's face. Charles swung his Nightmare's sword toward Megatron, which he blocked with the blunt of his fusion cannon weapon before slapping the Excalibur back. Getting desperate, Charles fired all 10 of his finger-slash-harkens at Megatron, but he was quick to draw his sword to slice and parry all of them before rushing at Charles again, forcing the Britannian Emperor on the defensive as he tried desperately to block and parry Megatron's relentless attacks. Knowing he had less chance of succeeding in close-quarters combat, Charles put the reverse on the Excalibur's Land Rover systems, rolling backwards while also firing the Hadron cannons again, this time at the ground underneath Megatron, causing an explosion that actually knocked the Decepticon leader back. "He's down," Charles thought in surprise before a triumphant smirk fell on his face. "Now's the time to end him." He charged up the Hadron for another shot. However, Megatron had already seen how the Hadron operates and got the timing of the charging and firing sequence down. Once he saw the cannons on the Excalibur's shoulders already glowing, Megatron quickly aimed and shot his fusion cannon, scoring a direct hit on the right Hadron cannon, resulting in a large explosion that sent the Excalibur flying and skidding across the ground. When Charles attempted to pick the Excalibur back up, he had a chance to observe the damage. The entire right Hadron cannon, along with the Excalibur's right arm, and most of the right side, just outside the cockpit, had been completely obliterated, with its right leg damaged beyond repair. The left Hadron cannon was also offline, while the rest of the left side appeared functional, but internal system damages were critical. "I told you, Charles," Megatron began as he walked toward the Excalibur, which Charles desperately tried to pull up. "Your weapon is certain powerful, but it contains one fatal flaw, the flaw that every weapon has." Megatron already stood before the Excalibur, with Charles trying to throw out a punch with its remaining hand, but the Decepticon leader caught it effortlessly. "It's user. You are no warrior." Megatron then drew his blade and not only severed the entire left arm, but both the left and heavily damaged right leg, before finally decapitating the Excalibur and letting the pieces fall to the ground as Megatron stood over it expectantly. Well, Don't tell me that's the best you can do, boy. Megatron told him. I'm sure you have at least one weapon of last resort, don't you? He watched as the cockpit hissed open, Charles Z. Britannia pulling himself out as he tried to catch his breath. Well, what is it? Megatron taunted. Charles glared hatefully at Megatron before activating his Geass, the sigil forming in both his eyes, but Megatron had already closed his optics. Don't even bother trying to use your Geass. Megatron smirked. That little candle flame you call power, is nothing compared to the vast sun that is my power. Megatron's optics opened, revealing they have not only changed from red to purple, but also showing a dark, yet identical, emblem in both of them, much to the horror of Charles. You have a Geass, Charles exclaimed, but it was already too late. Megatron had achieved direct eye contact with his dark Geass. Charles gasped as he found himself, not in the ruins of the Excalibur, nor did he appear to be even in Pendragon anymore. No, he found himself in what appeared to be a dead forest, all the trees around him laid barren, with no other signs of life at all. What is this? Where am I? Charles. The Emperor turned around at the sound of a familiar voice, seeing an individual he knew since his birth. Louch. It appeared as if Louch v. Britannia stood before him, clad in his Zero outfit, aside from the helmet. I'm leaving you, Charles, we are leaving. What are you talking about? Charles questioned as he saw his son turn around and begin walking away. Where are you going? Some place far away from you. A new voice spoke out, one that was far younger and more feminine. He looked in surprise to see a familiar girl sitting in a wheelchair with her eyes closed as Louch walked toward her. Nunnally. It's time to go, Nunnally. Louch offered his sister his hand. Shortly after, her eyes opened as she smiled and accepted the hand. Yes. Nunnally stood up fully out of her wheelchair, which vanished into thin air. Our father is expecting us. They turned around to walk away hand in hand. I'm standing right here, you insolent fools. Charles shouted. We're not speaking of you. Louch said as he and Nunnally continued to walk away, not even sparing him a glance. Optimus Prime is more of a father to us than you ever were. He is so kind and gentle, unlike you. Nunnally spoke with contempt. Goodbye, Charles, we will not meet again. They both walked into the dead forest before vanishing. Louch. Nunnally. Charles exclaimed as he saw them disappear. Don't you turn your back on me. Why wouldn't they? A new voice spoke out, causing Charles to turn as he saw two more of his daughters glaring at him. You've been nothing but cruel to both them. Cornelia. Euphemia. You sent them to die and lied to us about their deaths. Euphemia spoke to him. It's no wonder they've renounced you. In fact, it's a wonder why the two of us even bothered staying with you as well. Cornelia continued. Well, nothing is stopping us from leaving right now. I believe the Autobots will be better family to us. A family that we deserve, don't you agree, sister? Euphemia asked Cornelia. Yes, I do. Let's not keep them waiting. Cornelia agreed as the two sisters walked deeper into the forest before vanishing. No, you will not walk away from me. Charles shouted in anger. They have every right to do so. The voice of Clovis Le Britannia spoke as Clovis himself appeared behind Charles. You would discard them without a moment's hesitation, just as you did even me. My death was a stepping stone toward your precious progress, was it not? That's all we've ever been to you, Charles. Schneisel also appeared, alongside Odysseus, Guinevere, Maribel, Rai, Rowena, Carney, Layla, and many others. We've been expendable pawns for you, to be thrown away whenever you saw fit. So, it is time for us to finally take our leave. You left me, my mother, sister to all die. Rai glared as he stood with Irina. I'm glad I renounced you and joined Louch. You even dismissed my mother and sister's murders as well. Maribel also spoke. But we will not abide by your wishes anymore. With that, all of them began to turn around and walk away. No, no, don't you dare leave. I'm your father. I created you all. I own you. You are mine. Come back. However, once he saw them all vanished, his anger soon vanished as well as he chuckled. What am I even doing? This is nothing more than an illusion. Charles began to laugh. Is this the extent of your power, Megatron? To force feed me illusions? Most of them are already dead, your tricks will not work on me. He suddenly felt a hand on his shoulder as a shaded figure appeared behind him. Who said this was an illusion of my making? The voice of Megatron spoke as the shaded figure revealed its glowing purple eyes. This all came from you. From the innermost depths of your fears. Charles attempted to turn around, only to be greeted with a fist to the face to knock him down onto the ground. Well, come on, Charles Z. Britannia, 98 Emperor of the Holy Empire of Britannia, stand up. Are you going to allow this to end so easily, boy? The figure taunted in Megatron's voice as Charles glared up at him. Your Geass allows you to alter memories, quite a useful power. However, mine works on a similar level. By making direct eye contact, I can look deep inside the soul of an individual to see their absolute worst fears and bring them out to the surface. I might be able to manipulate the fears a little bit and decide how the visions play out, but everything that happens all stems from the fears that person feels. I have no control over that. Everything you've seen has all come from you. The shadows began to clear away from the figure to reveal the body was not that of Megatron, but that of his biological father. Though the shadows still covered his face, save for the glowing purple eyes, Charles recognized the body of his father, causing his eyes to widen and pupils to shake. What's wrong, Charles? The voice of Megatron continued to speak from the figure. As I recall, you loved and respected your father for his ideals. So why would he be something you would fear? Is it his ideals that you feared? Or is he a symbol of a moment in your life that you do not wish to ever look back upon? Almost as if on Charles' entire body changed. No longer was he the fully grown man he was today, but now he bore the appearance of his child self, no older than 7 or 8 years old. Hello little Charles. Megatron greeted in a taunting fashion. I haven't seen that face in over 50 years. You wretched alien, Charles exclaimed, his voice having changed to match his younger body as well. What game is this? What sort of tricks are you playing on me? You believe this is my game? Megatron questioned in amusement. No, this game is all yours. I'm just better at playing it, foolish child. Physical strength and mental prowess, each one can take you far in life should you master one. But, one cannot truly excel if you don't master both. Do you remember? I told you that I was the champion of the pits of Kaun not only due to my savage might, but also my cunning. I mastered both of them. You only managed to learn how to become cunning, while you lacked physical power. That being said, did you believe your deception had even the slightest chance of succeeding? That your Geass could somehow make up for your lack of power? Not a very good listener, are you? It hardly matters, when everything is all said and done. Everything you and your followers have worked on, everything you've ever built. The Geass Order, Ragnarok, it's nothing more than a childish squabble. The work of a frightened little boy too mad at the world, despite having the power to try and change it as emperor. It's the nature of battle, until you defeat what cowers you, you cannot truly become who you are meant to be. But to do that, you must break the shackles that hold you down, just as I did, just as Optimus, and even Louch did. We have all gone through that transformation, while you have not. From the very moment we've met, you've always been afraid, but what were you afraid of? Were you afraid of being weak? Were you afraid of dying? Or maybe you were afraid of being left alone. That is why you created your precious Ragnarok, and why you never mourned over the deaths of your children. You believed that by merging with the collective consciousness of humanity, you would be reunited with all those you claimed to hold dear, so it didn't matter whether or not they resented you in this life. What a foolish and childish gesture. Don't make me laugh, you're the one playing games. The shadow around the face of the figure began to clear to reveal it was the face of Megatron himself over the body of Charles's father as he smirked with pure malice. Look at you, you're the same as your brother. Megatron continued. You might have aged physically, as opposed to him, but in your heart you're both the same as when I met you. Just two weak, pathetic, spiteful, cowardly little children. Charles glared at Megatron with as much hate as he could muster. Well, what are you waiting for? You came here to kill me, right? Do it. Finish me. Megatron only looked more amused. Oh, I will. But not quite yet. There is something I want you to see. Charles gave a gasp as the purple rings around his eyes vanished and he was brought back to reality, still in his adult body and trapped in the destroyed remains of the Excalibur with Megatron looming over him. Oh, one other feature my dark Geass provides me is whether or not I can decide to kill my victims. Megatron gave a brief explanation. I could make their visions of terror so severe, their minds and bodies are unable to handle it and die. Or, I can just bring them out of the vision so they can live. Charles glanced up at Megatron, who could only sneer as he saw the terror in his eyes. But before your sad life comes to an end, I'd thought you'd like to see this. Megatron gestured ahead, causing Charles to look with a gasp as he already saw the Nemesis warship hanging directly over Pendragon's royal palace. A hatch opened up on the bottom hull of the Decepticon warship as a large rod-like device emerged, pointed downward to the already smoking and damaged palace. Within seconds, the weapon began to surge with intense red energy, preparing to fire its main weapon. Just outside the palace, all the remaining members of the Britannian royal family and assembled nobility had been escorted out by Kanan, Thundercracker, and Skywarp as they rejoined Starscream and all the other gathered Decepticons to watch the weapon charging from a safe distance. All the Decepticons present smirked with anticipation while the Britannians, minus Kanan, looked in clear terror. With the Nemesis weapon fully charged, a pulsating sphere of red energy glowing from the tip, it fired down a massive beam of destructive energy that completely leveled and obliterated the entire palace in brilliant and fiery passion, causing all the assembled royals and nobles to look on with clear horror as everything they've built had all been wiped away in one single instant. Many Decepticons, including Starscream and Skywarp, were already laughing at this scene. Charles looked with despair as he had saw what little remains of the palace that he once called his home be burnt away. One would actually think he'd be happy at something like that, given how much he detested his own empire, made evident by his work with the Geass Order and Ragnarok, but now was different. It wasn't the destruction of Pendragon that filled Charles with despair, it was the knowledge that everything he built with the Geass Order, including Ragnarok, was now lost to him and in the clutches of Megatron. No, it's all gone, everything we've built, the dream that I and Marianne and my brother all shared. How could this have happened? He then heard a series of footsteps approaching, causing him to turn toward his left where he saw not only Soundwave, but VV standing next to him, who could only look at his brother with regret. Big brother, Charles muttered with a tone of devastating betrayal. Charles, let's both be honest. You would have done the same to me. VV said. Megatron then loomed directly over Charles and aimed his fusion cannon before firing a single shot. A single shot that turned the 98th Emperor of Britannia into nothing more than a charred corpse. Soundwave did a quick scan to make sure that Charles was indeed deceased. The lack of heart rate, brainwave activity, or any other bodily functions all but confirmed it. He nodded to Megatron, who only smirked before glancing down to VV and giving him a hard glare. With great reluctance, VV silently bowed to Megatron, all but cementing his submission to him. With that, Soundwave picked up VV in his hand just as Megatron transformed and flew into the sky, with Soundwave doing the same and following his master. The Decepticon leader and his most faithful servant flew towards the burning remains of the royal palace before transforming and landing on the tallest pile of rubble, allowing all the assembled Decepticons and Britannians to see not only them, but VV sitting on Soundwave's shoulder. Rejoice, my Decepticons, Megatron announced. Charles Z. Britannia is dead. The fruits of his labor, now ours. Pendragon is in ruins. He raised his fist high into the air to make his declaration known. Britannia has fallen. This resulted in cheers from all the Decepticons present, and even joyous animalistic calls from the Insecticons at their latest victory, while the royal and noble Britannians were all but emotionally crushed. It's not over, Carney muttered, trying to convince herself there was still hope. Britannia has other areas across the world, Maribel, Schneisel, and even the Knights of the Round. Don't matter anymore. Skywarp interrupted as the Seeker trio loomed over the royal family. With your emperor dead, Britannia has no real leader. It'll fall apart in no time. Thundercracker added. You hear that, my dear Britannians? Starscream mocked. United we stand, divided you fall. All hail Megatron. One Decepticon shouted as he raised his fist, before every other Decepticon joined in, resulting in Megatron smiling his most malevolent smile yet. All hail Megatron! 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 And this is the end of part